Well, there you have it. It's another week, and here we are again. Good to see everybody showing up. I hope everybody's having a great week. And I know I've had just a fantastic week. I do want to, we'll go over all of that later on as we go through the show tonight. We have a fantastic show planned. We're going to talk some about solar panels tonight, about new panels versus old panels, some of the things that I've gone through in the last week or so since I got my new panels. And for those of you who haven't watched the video that came out this morning about solar panels, I encourage you to go back at some point and watch it. A lot of good information in it, but a lot of it we'll go over here together tonight. I do want to welcome all of the new viewers from Facebook. I know that I had a video on Saturday go just absolutely bananas, and we picked up 15,000 additional followers. So thank you so much. It was quite a surprise. I was out for the weekend at a show, and when I got back, there was just this new huge influx. Not to mention that YouTube also has been doing marvelous things. Speaking of the devil, we'll switch over a little bit to the stage with the fireworks to say thank you for the over 15,000 subscribers or members on Facebook and 25,393 subscribers on YouTube. You guys amaze me. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate everything that you guys contribute, you bring to it. We've also had a ton of new members sign up this week. For those of you who aren't aware, I'll pull a couple of them up during the transmission. But for those of you who aren't aware, my name is Matt. This is the live stream that I try to have every Monday night at 7 o'clock. Occasionally, things don't go as the way I want them to go, so it doesn't always work out that way. But as of this week, YouTube announced that they've got a program going on. I don't know if it's just for my channel or a bunch of channels or whatnot, but most of you can subscribe. Get a free membership for the next month. I think if you just go down and hit on the membership thing, it'll give you an opportunity to use the free token you've got for that. You'll get access to all of my videos, and this next month is going to be particularly heavy on early releases because I am releasing at least one video a day all month. As the summer months roll through, there is just a ton of content to go over. New devices, new things, new stuff coming out all the time. And it just really, really is awesome to be a part of this and to have all of you along for the ride. I see we have Fast Teddy 760 watching from North Cali, learning a lot from your videos. Well, welcome to the channel, Fast Teddy, and welcome to the live stream, obviously. That's what it's all about, is learning and educating, and I always try to listen to all of you guys' feedback, with the exception of this week on Facebook with approaching a million views on a video in a couple of short hours. Made it very difficult for me to respond to everything. I will try to get to you all, though. But obviously, you could always come here and ask your questions, and at least until I can't answer them anymore, I will do my best to go through all of the comments, as I always do. I see Donald is back. Donald, good evening to you. How do you like our stinky weather this week? Nothing but clouds and rain, and more clouds and more rain. And we will deal with it the best we can, although you'll hear a little bit about with my new solar panels how that kind of may be a solution for some of that. So we'll get into that here in a little bit. Solar and more. Hello from Lakeland, Florida. Well, hello, Lakeland, Florida. Hello from over here in the Melbourne, Palm Bay, Cocoa Beach area also. We have tons and tons of good content. I've got somewhat of an agenda tonight, but as always, you guys, if you've got something that's different, you want me to talk about something specific, please bring it up. Let's do it. I don't have any problem with that. My schedule is not fixed, and I've kind of arranged it in a series of, I don't know how many questions or how many bullet points to talk about tonight, but we'll just start going through them one at a time. And as we get questions and feedback, I'll just interrupt the show and we'll go back. We'll go to the feedback and try not to get too far behind. 4 3/4 inch of rain in the last 24 hours. Yeah, tell me about it. But you know what's actually kind of neat about that? I'll show you what I'm talking about here. If I can actually get it to share the way I want it to. Let's just try it here. Do that. I think if I click on this, oh, look at that, it worked. Okay, so oh, that's not the view I want though. I don't like that view. I like this view better. Although that one does look good. Okay. Anyway, so this is the Home Assistant, and as you can see, I've already got the bit miner running because the batteries were already getting full, and that is the moral of the story tonight with the new panels versus old panels. I did end up getting quite a bit of generation in today. As you can see here, we did have a nice storm between 2 and 3 o'clock, but I still pulled in 48.5 kilowatt hours. As you all know from the video release this morning, 48 is probably about 15 more than I would have on a normal day with the used panels. So, and I've got some more details about that as we go through it. So I'll get into that as we go through it. I'm going to put a couple of, I'm going to try something new this week. I've got a couple of, I think polls, I think is what I ended up getting them to work. Let me just see if I can come over here and start these polls. So if you see the poll, please just, I think you just put in the answer in the comment box below and it will tally up your polls. So as we go along, I'll just pull up a couple of different polls throughout the show and see how many people get some curiosity questions answered here. So the question is would you buy used panels today? And obviously most of you watching this channel, the answer to that would be yes, but let's see how it goes anyway. All right, so let's get on with the first part of the show today, which is why used panels were such a great deal. And I talk about this a little bit in past tense. Not strictly meaning that they aren't a good deal anymore. Yeah, yeah. Well, that work in the background, and Solar and More. Let me just tell you, this work in the background is an image. It is not real. I have 2 different locations that I do my live streams from. In the winter, when it's nice outside in the solar shed, I work in the shed, and any of you who've been with me long enough to know, I spend the nights out there. We'll actually do builds and build things and change things and stuff. When it gets hot like it's been today, and I don't know exactly what the temperature is out there today right now. Let's just go over and take a look. It is still 92 degrees outside. And when it gets hot, I come into my indoor studio, and this is a mock-up. I used to use green screens, but the problem I was running into when I would do demos with the green screens, I would hold up things like this that I wanted to show you, and the green screen would make them invisible, and made it very difficult for me to actually do real good live stream. So I bought a background and just kind of had AI generate a really cool background with all the different components I use. Most of these I do use, like the big battery is real. I do use a lot of the Victron devices. Of course, the 6000 XP, the watt cycle wall batteries. And then if I slide a little bit this way, you can see the new rack batteries from the Warren rack batteries, and if I slide this way, you can see the Life Power batteries. So absolutely, I do, it does look really nice and clean, but it's not real. I wish it was that clean. If you want to see a real one from my system, I've got a few pictures that I was going to go over later on in the show, so I'll kind of bring a few of them up here so you can see them. So they look a little bit more like, let me see if I can get this to show up right. How in the world did I do that? Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Sorry, I have to relearn. So this is a picture from an upgrade that I am in the process of doing out in the solar shed to accommodate a little bit more, the bigger breaker here for all of the new solar panels. I had to go from from 100 amp hours to 200 amp hours. What the hell am I talking about? 100 amps to 200 amps in this here. But in order to do that, I had to upgrade some of the wires and stuff. As you can see, the single wire couldn't handle the full 200 amps. So I put two 1-aught full pure copper tin coated wires on there, and it's handling it nice and cool now. But as you can see, that wiring is not near as pretty as the background that you see here. I wish it was, though. All right. And then we have no looking forward. There ain't too many 500 plus watt panels. There aren't too many 500 watt panels. There's quite a few of them out nowadays. The problem with the 500 watt panels is they're so darn big you can't have them shipped unless you have a dock to ship them onto. And that's kind of really the big issue there, which kind of stinks. But hey, you know, it is what it is. Sound cut off by commercial. I have commercials turned on. Hold on a second. I'll turn that crap off. I'm not doing commercials while we're online. I don't know what's going on with this. I keep turning them off and it keeps turning them on me. So give me just a second. I'll flip them off. You shouldn't be watching commercials. And won't take me but a second to fix it. Let's see if I can find it. Hold on a second, but I'm going to get rid of the commercials for you guys. They should not be on. Let's see. Oh, that's because I'm looking in the wrong spot. All right. Give me just a second here. What does it say? Ads off, ads are on here. Yes, you are right. So let me just fix that real quick. All right. Once you get current, you will be current with me now. I have turned all the ads off for the duration of the show. They should only appear after the show. At any point in the future, if you were ever watching my live stream and you see a commercial live, let me know and I will make sure they get shut off. They should always be shut off during the live stream. I hate having delayed conversations. All right, so let's move on. 700 plus watt panels are huge. Yes, they are. They are ginormous. They are just ginormous. Even the 445s that I have are 83 inches long and 42 inches wide. I mean, they are huge, huge panels. That's almost 7 feet tall. It's just, they're just crazy how big they are. The nice thing is though, they're only, the new ones that I just installed, they're only about 55 pounds. So for the extra weight, you get a lot of panel though. Is my mic off? Oh, it's back on now. Go to the current. Let me know if anyone sees any more new commercials because they should be all gone at this point. So I have turned off all the commercials. So hopefully Donald, that takes care of that for you. I hope they're gone. All right, you brave browser, no commercials. Get current on all comms. Should oh, that's me. Okay. All right, so let's talk a little bit. Don't forget to make sure that you're answering the polling question, and then I'm going to continue on here for the first piece of the puzzle here is why used panels were such a great deal. And this is 90% of what I'm going to tell you is opinion. It's my opinion based on the experiences that I've had with solar panels. And so I want to make sure that we're all kind of aware of that. That there is a right time and a wrong time for most of the panels and the differences here. So $20 to $40 panels are used. You can find them on Craigslist or Facebook all the time. I still say Craigslist, but Craigslist is pretty much gone now. And then the nice thing is that they're relatively inexpensive. There's a huge surplus of them now because what's going on is a lot of these solar farms are limited by space. And so the only way they have to increase the amount of solar power they have is the same option I was left with. I had 94 used panels laying all around and was using them all and wasn't able to generate as much as I wanted. So what I ended up having to do is sell off all my used panels and replace them with newer, higher, better technology. Now, there are some big benefits to doing so, and that's what we're going to go through a little of that tonight, and a little of that was covered in the video earlier today too. But that surplus has made them super cheap. $20, $40 panels is a great price, and it's kind of hard to compete with. They're easy to build really large arrays cheaply. And they're great for learning. A lot of people when they bought my used panels, they were in the process of learning. They're in the process of setting up. There was anything from tree houses to small RVs to learning to set up a small solar system in their backyard to all of these things. And they are great for that because they're cheap. And if you do something and you break one or something like that, it doesn't really make you really sad. For example, when I installed all those panels, there was probably 3 of them that I shattered in place of hanging them vertically or putting screws in them the wrong way or things like that. And had they been new panels, it would have been very, very problematic for me. So I wouldn't have been doing that. I won't be doing that with my new panels, but I also learned what I could and what I couldn't get away with. Is there a difference in square inches for performance? Bigger wattage panels look to me as if the same wattage per square inch, just single larger panels. This is a fantastic question, and it technically, it's not so much the bigger panels, it's the age of the panels and the technology of the panels. A lot of the older panels, and I'll give you an idea, and this is kind of a part of really what I wanted to talk about today, and the thing I didn't get to go into as much detail in the video as I would have liked to. So I'm going to go back to Home Assistant and kind of give you guys some stats on this, because this is a great question. Fast Teddy, I think it is. Yeah, Fast Teddy. So we're going to go back over here to Home Assistant here, and I'm going to show you. So if I pull up the old stats from when I used to get, actually, I'm going to do this in Solar Assistant, because Solar Assistant shows me pretty early on when full power comes to the panels, because the first thing a panel has to do is it has to get enough light to generate power. And once that power gets up to a thing, that's what usually causes your inverters to turn on. So if you've got like an EG4 6000 XP or one of the larger inverters, you need a certain amount of power in those panels to turn on. Most of the time it's 120 volts. Some of the more bigger recent ones are even 200 volts. Now, in order to get 200 volts, that means that you need to have enough power flowing through those panels to actually get those inverters to turn on. So you can see here, my sunrise isn't even until 7 something in the morning. But at 6:35, I'm already at 236 volts on these strings, and 300 volts is full power for these strings by 2 minutes till 7 o'clock. Now, 2 minutes till 7 o'clock, if you look over here, and I'm going to put this on the same spot on both sides. If you look over on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see that the generation is almost nothing. But the panels have powered up and are creating the voltage to carry that power. Now they can start generating. Now, this is what was really different about used panels or older panels. These are newer panels with an efficiency rating between 21 and 22%. And a lot of people ask, okay, so what does the efficiency rating really mean? Well, what it means is that they are collecting at a broader base. And I have seen a significant improvement in this actual number simply because they are able to collect at times when you wouldn't expect your original panels to collect. For example, on a very, very shady day, and let's talk about yesterday. Let's see if I can bring this back 24 hours here. There has to be a way to scroll this backwards. Last 24 hours, last 2 days. Here we go. So as you can see, today is here. Now for today, most of the day, short of this section right here in the middle, I had okay sun. It wasn't great, but it was bright enough that I would have gotten solar from most of the panels, new or used. Yesterday, however, would have been almost no production from the old panels because it was all indirect light. And indirect light on those older panels wouldn't have powered up to the point where they could have even collected any of that indirect light. And if you're looking at this chart and you're saying there's a huge dramatic increase between what it produced today and what it produced yesterday, if I go back and look at this is what it produced today was 48 kilowatt hours. Yesterday it generated 22 kilowatt hours and there was no sun. It was cloudy all day. It was rainy most of the day. So I got 22 kilowatt hours on a horrible day. As a matter of fact, I think it was just a few moments ago that someone was saying we'd gotten all that rain. Donald was saying that we got 4 inches of rain, and he's absolutely right. If you look back at my production here, 22 hours, 22 kilowatts the day before, 40 the day before that, 46 the day before that, 28 the day before that, 46 the day before that, and this is during all of this rain. Now, in the old days with the used solar panels, now keeping in mind, this is 32 brand new 450 watt bifacial panels. Now, the bifacial isn't really set up in a bifacial configuration. I set them up exactly like the old panels were set up, with the exception I've only set up 32 of them as opposed to 94. But if we go back a little further into the time before I had these panels, which they were installed right around here somewhere, then we start seeing 12 watts, 12, 12, 10, 14. Now keep in mind, these numbers are 94 used solar panels in the same spot with the same light that you have now. And 15, 13, 8. And so when it get rainy or everything, now the best day, now these are kind of rainy days. These 25, and I went back and hunted it down, my best day with 94 panels on the sunniest day of the year, on the best performance that I could find, was 36 kilowatt hours. The worst day, most days where it's rainy and stormy, I would get about 5 or 6. Now that means it was about 1/7 the production of the normal lighted day. Now I'm getting 20 to 25 out of the typical full day of sun would be 70. Yes, it's less, but it's 40%, not 12%. That is a huge difference in the quality and the performance of a panel at the time when you need it the most. That was the part that was important to me, is that I am running a bit miner today and yesterday because I have enough power, excess power to burn, but not because it was so sunny, not because it's summer, because the panels were able to collect even in shaded environments. And that has probably been one of the biggest surprises. And I've got another really big surprise, but I'm going to stop for a minute and answer some of these comments. You guys have got a lot of feedback out here, so I want to make sure I don't get too far behind. Just liked and subscribed. Great, Solar and More, glad to have you. Make sure if you are here and you are new, for you YouTube users, there is YouTube informed me earlier today that there's a free subscription for the membership also if you want it. So I think everybody should be able to at least get 1 month free. See if you like it. This month is going to be particularly active because I'm going to be posting a ton of content this month because it's summer and we have lots of new stuff coming out. So feel free if you are interested in getting to that content a little earlier. Sometimes I post them a few days early, sometimes it's a week early, sometimes I have 2 or 3 weeks of videos out there, sometimes I only have a couple of hours of videos out there. So it just depends on what time it is. I think right now I have Monday, probably Wednesday's release. I've got a few more in the bucket, but they're not ready yet. Unless you're watching shorts, then there's a few of them out there also. Jake, if you have a truck or trailer, you can just pick up the large panels from the shipping depot. Yes, you can if you are close enough to it. And I'm assuming the shipping depot here where I live would probably be Orlando, and I could do that. I could go and pick them up there. But it's really nice. Even the ones that I had here, as you saw in the video, made me a little nervous, but they did deliver them. So that was kind of nice. Where do you find used panels? North Coast region. Used panels, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to watch and scan Facebook, usually Marketplace. People are trying to ditch the panels. They either want to get rid of them, they had them taken off of their roof and they've got a new roof and they don't want to put them back up because they're old. They don't want to pay for a disposal fee, so they'll let you come pick them up. You've got solar farms that close down. They're looking for a way to sell off the old panels and get something out of them. Most of them will clearance them at really good prices. But any of those locations, a lot of people tell me that in a particular area that they've gone out, they've looked, and that there's nothing out there. It's not a matter of you go right now, you find panels right now. Sometimes it happens like that. But it is something that you're going to need to watch. You're going to need to pay attention to it, day to day for a while, and see if you can catch them when they list them. A lot of the times those panels go very fast, so you have to be, as I say, Johnny on the spot, and call them up or text them or write them back or whatever, and be quick to go get them and take them away, or you will miss them because they do go pretty fast. There still isn't an influx yet. The used panel market's still pretty much around the 260 to 280 watt zone. I've seen a couple of 300s show up in the used panel market at this point. I look forward to the day where you can get 350s and 380s pretty commonly, because there's a lot of them out there. They should have a pretty good rush on those at some point. I'm still in the process of learning. We are all still in the process of learning, trust me. There is here in a little bit, I'm going to go over something extra about these panels that completely threw me for a loop and just completely caught me off guard. So don't worry about that. Craigslist is still good for panels, plus they're usually local. Yeah, I had some really good luck. My first batch of panels was off of Craigslist. Craigslist, you have to be a little bit more careful about crap. And what I mean by that is people post garbage, they're not real. I've usually figured out that on Craigslist, you almost have to send out a cursory question of something that that's not generic enough to where they can actually respond with something they had to be almost human about to do. And that would actually make sure that you had legitimate ones there, but it's still very difficult on Craigslist. You have to go through a lot of, don't get me wrong, you got to go through a lot of crap on Facebook too. But if you want the used panels, that's the way you have to go about it. And they're worth it by all means. I mean, keeping in mind that, yes, I just upgraded to 32 new panels, but it was the selling of the used panels that paid for those new panels. So all of my panels were purchased used. I had my first batch of 12 panels, which I purchased off of Craigslist for $180. I had a second batch, which was someone who's getting a new roof and they didn't want them anymore. They were going to upgrade, and they sold me, I think it was 38 of them for $200 right at. And then the third batch that I got was a massive upgrade on a house, and they just basically wanted them all gone. They had them all packed up, and you guys have seen that video with the pallets where I had to load the pallets into the trailer, and I got the pallet jacks all the way up into the trailer, and they wouldn't fit through the door of the trailer. Had to end up loading them manually anyway. But those were all free. So I ended up with 98 panels. I had 94 of them, 94 or 92 active at its peak. And that's just simply because there was a couple of them that were broke. There was a few of them that need some work. And there was a couple that had some diodes that were out that had to be repaired and stuff. So yes, definitely make friends with roofers. Make friends with what are those guys that do the cleanups, home cleanups and stuff like that? If you know a real estate agent, ask them for who their home cleanup person is and talk to those people, because a lot of the times if you offer to take them away for those home cleanup people, they get paid to just clean the house up. Well, those solar panels have a huge disposal fee for them, and they don't know what they are or how to sell them. So you just tell them anytime they run into solar panels to call you, you'll come get them. And if you promise to pick them all up and take them away, a lot of the times they'll just let you have them for nothing. That's been probably one of my best sources for used panels right there. All right. So really, the question becomes is what's changed in the used panel market, and what is different about the used panel market from what it was before. So it was originally that solar panels, just a few years ago, solar panels cost about 80 cents to $1.20 per watt. That was a tremendous amount of money for even a 100-watt panel could cost you $120. And the equivalent of today's 400-watt panel could cost you an easily $500 or $600. Now, keeping in mind, I just bought 445-watt panels for, I think it was tax, title, and license all shipped out and everything. Shipping, the whole thing, I think I paid like $3,900 for 31 of them. So I paid $125 for 445 watts. So take that 125 divided by 440 watts. So including shipping, and if I had lived close enough to go pick them up, I would have, or if I was in the process of making a trip to Texas, I would have. They would have been even cheaper, but it ended up costing me 28 cents a watt for brand new bifacial 21.x% efficiency panels, which is a huge change from what it was just a few years ago. And that's what's really changed a lot from today. You can get those panels from 20 cents to 35 cents. And I've even posted multiple discount deals in the last week, in the last month, I would say, for 18 cents and 15 cents and all that a watt. So you can get some great deals if you're a subscriber. I post those as soon as they come out. So if I ever see them, or if my one of my affiliates ever send me things saying, hey, this is happening, I always post those. So please just make sure you're a subscriber and you'll get that on your feed and you won't have to go hunt for it. So it used to also be that shipping was a lot worse. Now, shipping still is painful. It cost me $550 to get it shipped from Texas to Florida. Now, I'm Central Florida, so we're not talking about we're not going to Pensacola. Pensacola is only half of the trip. So shipping is still a significant part of it, but instead of the $3,200 for the panels, where they would have been 200-watt panels or 230-watt panels a few years ago, now they're 445-watt panels, and instead of $1,200 or $1,800 in shipping, it's about $500 to $600 shipping, which is much, much, much more cost effective than it used to be. Because even at that, you can still, you can get panels now for shipped to you for 28 cents a watt, which is very, very reasonable. I mean, even when I bought the original panels for the RV, those were 370 watt bifacial panels. I bought them almost 2 years ago. They were a fantastic deal at that point, and those cost about 35 to 40 cents a thing, and the shipping on them was still, you know, $400 or $500, and I only ordered 10 of them. So everything as far as panel cost has come down, and that's made a huge difference on that. I think this poll is pretty much done. I think everyone agrees that, so let's switch the polls. What do you say? I'm just going to stop this poll and we're going to start a new one. And I'm curious of what is the biggest limiter of your, what is your biggest limitation? Is it budget? Is it roof space? Is it property size? Is it your battery inverter limits? You know, maximum capacity, voltage, that type of thing. So if you get a chance in the comments, just comment 1, 2, 3, or 4, just whatever your thing is. That will populate that for us. Or can you click on it? I don't even know. Can you click on it? I don't think you can. But either way, so that's the big, and this brings us to really the third part and the third largest question here that I have in today's live stream is basically talking about roof space versus ground space. Now, as you all know, I have 31 415 watt panels on my roof. It's grid tied. I do have some, if you've been watching videos on my AC coupling coming out, I did get informed last week that my solar company has gone belly up, and I no longer have to worry about the warranty that was preventing me from doing anything like solar coupling or any of that stuff. So I will be doing the AC coupling project here in the next week or two, and we will get that feed going in. My yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, we won't say anything about that. Maybe mine might be watching, so I don't want to have any comments there. But mine's been very, very accommodating up to this point. But I think a lot of that is that the rain comes and knocks out the power once, or the hurricane comes and knocks out your power once, Donald, and she'll be looking to you to keep things running, and that might help you convince her to be a little bit more generous with the budget. That's funny. So I have the 31 panels on the roof, but I also had the 94 panels in the backyard, and a lot of us are looking at limited space. So if you have older panels on your roof and you're thinking about doing the upgrade, some of you can add additional panels and get that extra power out of it. But sometimes you just simply don't have that space. I know back when I was traveling in my RV, I didn't have that ability. And that was why I built the solar shed. And that is why I had all that content about the solar shed, because when I was parked, I didn't want to pay for that electricity. And I had a home base that was, you know, down off the river, and it made it very easy for me to just pay my electric bill. And I was basically given the ultimatum. I could have the solar panels, but they either had to be attached to the building or the RV. So I put 3,700 watts on the RV, and it wasn't quite enough to go off grid. I still was getting an electric bill, and I didn't want the electric bill. So I built the solar shed. Now, I built the solar shed with 12 300 or 250 watt solar panels. Now, had I needed more power, I wouldn't have had any more room. There was no more room. And this is what a lot of us face. And this is what I was facing. There wasn't room for me to add more panels, so I had to go into either upgrading the panels I have or living with the power that I have. And for those of you who know me, you know that I'm not about, solar for me isn't about learning to live with less power. It's about the freedom to live with whatever power I can generate, as much as I can generate. And I encourage you to generate more and find creative ways to use it. I run a bit miner every day. I've got one running right now. Lately, it's been running 12, 15, 16 hours a day. So I really am about the independence and the freedom of power, not necessarily the conservation, because if I'm generating it, then there isn't anything to conserve. And that's really what it's about for me. I usually get what I want, but it just takes a while. Yes, and creative ways of presenting it where it's their idea, not yours. Um, how is grid tied benefiting you on your electric bill? Okay, so this is actually an interesting question because this, for the first time in 3 years, last month I got an electric bill. And my wife was kind of puzzled. She says the bill's, I think it was $62. Um, and normally we don't get a bill above the absolute minimum, which here where I'm at is about $28. And you usually don't get one of those the first 3 to 5 months of the year. And I'll explain why. So during the year here, I'm very fortunate in Florida. We have a 1-for-1 ratio with the electric company. If we give 1 kilowatt hour, we get 1 kilowatt hour. Every month, if you are short, you pay the bill. If you are over, they put it into a bucket that carries over to the next month. At the end of the year, they reconcile that bucket. If you have X amount of kilowatt hours in that bucket, they pay you a percentage of what kilowatts you have available, up to a certain amount. And that certain amount is to prevent you from just generating a bajillion kilowatt hours. So they'll pay you for it. Now, usually that credit in my case is about $120 a year. And then that covers my electric bill for the first 3, 4, 5 months. And then I start getting $30 electric bills after that. And that continues until December. And then I get another credit. So, and then they credit it off again and it goes back to the normal. Now, that base fee is, there's nothing you can't avoid the base fee. You're going to pay the base fee. It doesn't matter how many kilowatt hours you've got accumulated. And then they're going to pay you back at the end of the year. Why they do it that way, I'm not exactly sure, but I'm glad that they do, because in a lot of parts of the country, a lot of other ones are not as lucky as we are, and you end up with peak hours. You end up with peak hours, meaning that, prime time between 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. when you're most active and you're giving the kids baths, you're cooking dinner and blah, blah, blah. They charge you, instead of, 15 or 20 cents a kilowatt hour, they charge you 60 or 70 cents a kilowatt hour. In the morning when you're waking up and you're getting ready for work, you're making coffee, you're, getting the kids ready for school, you're cooking breakfast, they charge you an exorbitant amount. So a lot of people are using these solar systems now to peak shave those hours off. Use the electricity and the solar collection during the non-peak hours, and then don't use the grid during those hours. Use your batteries. Now, the question, going back to how is it benefiting me? Sorry, got distracted, solar and more. I put in every month excess power to it. Now, last month I got a little bit carried away with some tests I ran on the bit mining to find out what it would cost to actually run the bit miner 24/7, how much power it was, when I was evaluating what I was going to need to do to upgrade to run it all the time. And so I used a whole bunch of that, and it caused me to get an electric bill. Other than that, it is the first bill in 3.5 years that I have seen. Every other bill that I've got has been the minimum or avoid it because of the annual credit that comes along. So it's benefited me greatly. Now, that said, if I was to do it again tomorrow, there would be no grid tied. I would not connect to the grid. I would go with a full, like a hybrid system or a completely off-grid. And probably I would just go with off-grid. I would use my own batteries to store my own power, and then I would go to it. Now, I am going to go in and do the AC coupling to be able to use the panels that are on my roof on a grid-tied system so that when the grid goes out, that I still have access to the panels and the power it produces during a hurricane or other power outages. But not necessarily is that how I would do it today. That was how I did it then, and the solar industry has changed dramatically since then. Believe it or not, still to this day, approximately, best estimates are that about 74% of all the solar systems installed in America today do not have battery systems. They are using the grid as a repository for their excess energy, and then they get back from that grid when they don't have power generation, like solar is inactive in the evenings, at night, and so on and so forth. Now, unfortunately, in most parts of the country, they're not as friendly with that power generation as they are here in Florida. And sometimes you will give a kilowatt hour to the electric company, and they will give you a third or a fifth or an eighth of a kilowatt back, meaning that if you generate 5 kilowatts of power for somebody else, they'll give you 1 back. How generous of them. I'm lucky enough that if I generate 1 and give it to the company during the day, that I can use 1 at night at no cost. I don't know how long that will last. I don't know how long any of us will still have that ability to do that. Distance from panels to inverter. What is the practical and how far away can you place panels from the inverter? Is 60 or 100 foot greater practical? Absolutely, it is practical. With today's, the key here on panels and distance from your inverter is voltage. In your newer panels, and let me kind of give you cables can be a huge factor, but at the same time, they can be a non-issue, especially if you're only talking about 60 to 100 feet. And I'll give you an example of this. Imagine you run an extension cord for at 120 volts to run a fan or something, and it's a 100-foot extension cord. Would your fan still run? Yes, it would. Would it possibly use more power because of some voltage drop? Yes. Now, if you drop that down to a 12-volt battery, and let's say you put your fan on your car battery and run it 100 feet, when it gets to the end of that 100 feet, it is going to draw a lot more power because the voltage drop on 12 volts is going to be 10 times the drop of the 120, thereabouts. And 10 times is really a bad example, and I probably shouldn't have said it. It is going to be much higher than the 120 volts. The thing is the higher the voltage goes, the less the drop. Perfect example of this is the power lines outside. You'll notice that in all the power lines, there's 2 sets of lines and sometimes 3. The bottom power lines are the 120 volts that are for homes. So during your house, it comes down and it goes into the transformer. That transformer is stepping the voltage down from the higher power lines down to the 100 or 240 volts that goes into your house. And the reason it does that close to your house is because it can't travel more than a few 100 feet without some level of power loss. Keep that in mind, a few 100 feet without some level of power loss. Now, if you go to the lines above that, most of them in a residential area are operating at about 12,000 volts, but they can travel miles and miles without losses. And then if you go to the big ones that are on the big giant metal poles and stuff that are out in your along the big highways and stuff, some of them are running in the 250 and 300,000 volts. And the losses are very little because the voltage is so high. So the trick here is on your solar panels, to clarify a little bit what the question is to bring that voltage up to the highest point you can for the inverter you have. And now let me give you an example of what I mean by that and show you on my system what that means. So on my system, if I go over here to Solar Assistant, you will see that during the day, mine operates at about 300, at least the 2 strings that I have connected to my 6000 XP, they operate at about 300 to 310 to 320 volts. Now, they're not placed a couple of 100 feet away, but they could be, because 300 volts could easily have a decent, would have very little drop on power. Now, the other thing you can do to make a difference also is pay attention to the PV wire you're buying. PV wire comes in with primarily 3 sizes. It comes in 8 gauge, 10 gauge, and 12 gauge. Now, the cheap stuff that a lot of people buy is the 12 gauge. And for most of us, the 12 gauge is fine. In your circumstance where you're going to be running at 80, 100 feet, you're going to want to go with a higher grade wire or a bigger wire in order to prevent that drop. So you bring that voltage up and you make that wire a little bit bigger, and you're going to bring that resistance down, and thus your losses and your power drop down. Same thing's true with an extension cord. 120 volts, you will have some drop at 100 foot cord. You put 200 foot cords on there and you're going to have even more drop, and at some point you're going to have problems. But 100 foot should not be a problem. If you have a problem with 100 foot, it is always going to be the fact that you either bought wire that wasn't pure copper, or you're using, in some cases, even 12 gauge wire will work for those distances as long as the voltage is high enough. But my suggestion is if you're running something that long, that you should always go with the 10 gauge or the 8 gauge wire. It is more expensive, but it'll pay for itself in the long run. And hopefully, Fast Teddy, that T being used twice always gets me. And Donald, you're absolutely right. Cable size is a major factor. And that is why in those longer runs, especially if you can't get the voltage up too high, you're going to want to make sure that you do it. Now, if you're running a small fast eddy, oh, it is eddy. The T isn't fast Teddy. Crap. Well, okay, it doesn't get used twice. So now I'll be able to say it without thinking about it. Thanks. So the point is here, Fast Eddy, that use the larger cable, get the voltage up where it can. If you're running on a little 12 volt system where you're only allowed to, you're only allowed to have 1 or 2 panels in parallel and they're running at 16, 18 volts, or you're charging a little 12 volt system and can't get it up over 48 volts or something like that, you're going to see some power drop, and it could be very significant. But if you're running a larger system where you can get the voltage up like I have here into the multiple hundreds, and I have seen 200 volts, 250 volts, 100 feet should not be an issue whatsoever. As long as you go with the 10 gauge wire, you're not going to have a problem there. All right. I have no idea what I was talking about before that question. Let me go back to, what was I talking about? Oh, so we were talking about this. We were talking about how does roof space and ground space change your opinions. So my opinion on the solar panels, whether they're new or they're old, depends enormously on the space that you have available. If you have a field behind your house where you can put up as many as you want, by all means, use the cheap panels. Now, that also depends on whether you have to mount those panels or whether you can take some shortcuts like I did and lean them against the fence. Now, does that mean when a hurricane comes that I have to pack them up? Yes, it means when a hurricane comes, I would have to pack them up. But to be honest with you, I'm not sure there's any rack mount, gazebo mount, short of putting them on my house, which I already have 31 panels on my house, that I would feel comfortable leaving them there during a hurricane anyway. So I will take them all down, and at that point, the more temporary they are, the easier they are for me to stack up and to put into the shed and lock them away so that they're safe during a storm. And my idea is to stack them up very similar to the way when they first came, and use some big straps, strap them together, because a giant bundle that weighs 1,600 pounds of solar panels isn't going to be blown around very easily by a storm. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some of the hidden costs that nobody talk about, because I can tell you all day long, you use cheap used panels here, buy new panels here, but what nobody ever talks about is all of those things that you have to buy in addition to that. And some of it we talked about just a minute ago. The wire. If you're going to be running a very long ways away, you're not going to want the smaller gauge wire. You're going to want some of the bigger gauge wire. If you're running it close and in low voltage, you're going to want some of the bigger gauge wire. So you really need to match that gauge, and it comes in three sizes, as I said: 8 gauge, 10 gauge, 12 gauge. And the 8 gauge obviously is the best, the 10 gauge is the middle, and the 12 gauge is the least. But that doesn't mean that you can't use 12 gauge and it isn't appropriate in some cases. In some cases, it is perfectly appropriate to use 12 gauge. I personally use 10 gauge for practically everything. I don't have anything that is in the need of the 8 gauge. If I was living off-grid in a farm and I had a big set of panels, you know, hundreds of feet away from the house that I was going to be using to run my solar system, I probably would run the panel voltage back at the high voltage and have the inverters close to the house, and then run the 240 into the house, because at the same time, the house power going to the house is 240 volts. If I can get the solar panels to come to the house at 300 or 400 volts safely, then that would be even better, because there would be less loss there than there would be on the other thing. So it's a balancing act. You have to kind of look at cost versus it. But at the same time, running that power, that lung, that 8 gauge wire is much more expensive. So you're going to want to think about that too. Some of the other hidden costs. So let's talk about them. If you are using newer panels and they're bigger panels, let's say the 450s, 445s that I just bought compared to the 250s that I used to have, mounting 94 255 panels as opposed to mounting 31 445 panels for twice the power is going to have a mounting bracket, mounting rails, mounting wire, mounting clamps. If you're not installing them DIY, a labor expense for installing them, you're going to have the mounts themselves, the racks. All of that expense is going to multiply, because in order to get the equivalent of my 445 watt panel, I'm going to need at least two 250s. That would give me 500, but that means that I have double the mounting equipment. And a lot of the times these days, the mounting equipment is almost as expensive, if not more, than the panels themselves. In addition to that, I'm going to need to have double the connectors, double the amount of strings, and all of that. I get 445 watts at a 50 watt out of each panel, and I get 250 out of a 36 watt panel. So for a 36 volt versus 50 volt, for a 15 volt difference, I get twice the extra power. And so that is huge when it comes to getting the amount of wire, the type of wire that I need. That voltage increase actually helps me when it comes to wire and getting the voltage into the system safely. And it also helps me with mounting equipment and all that. I hope that's clear. If not, please put a thing in the comments and let me know what part of it didn't make sense. I'll be glad to do it. I use 8 gauge for all my PV wire, and that's why your wife is after you, Donald, because you're using that 8 gauge for everything. All right, Jake. Jake says, would the MC4 connector become the limiting factor of larger than 10 gauge? No, it is not. You can buy MC4 connectors that fit the 10 gauge to 12 gauge, or you can buy MC4 connectors that fit the H gauge 10 gauge. Yes, they are more expensive, but they are the same connectors, and they do connect to both. You can, I don't think I've seen any that were fit all 3 sizes of the wire. I would bet that some of them do. Maybe Donald, do you have to go look for? They make 8 gauge. Okay, yeah, he already answered the question. Thank you. That was kind of what I thought. I haven't seen any. I know the ones that I use will fit both 10 and 12. And since I don't use 12, I use them only on 10. But sometimes I get used wire from when someone gets rid of a system and I get rid of their used panels for them, I will get the used wire and use sections of it for testing systems and that kind of stuff. They're great for running temporary strings out and setting down, you know, if I've got a system I'm testing or whatnot. So sometimes those will be 12 gauge. And I do have one set that is 8 gauge. So you'll see a variety of it, but no, they do sell MC4 connectors for both. So more hidden cost. The MC4 connectors was one of them, but all of those costs tend to add up and do make a huge difference. When you're running, you know, 100 feet of 10 gauge wire is about $110 right about now. Your MC4 connectors, obviously, the less of those that you use, the better. But you're going to end up using, you know, several of them. You're going to have your racks, your mounts. If you're digging and putting in, you know, ground post and concreting them in, or pounding them in, or having them pressed in with somebody coming by and pressing them in. If you're in an area that doesn't have rock down below, those are really good. But all of this stuff really adds up, and this is what I would encourage you, that if you're not mounting it on your house and you're mounting it on a mount back there, a lot of the times people think, oh, well, it's a whole lot cheaper. It's a lot cheaper if you leave out all the accessories. But even on a house, the mounts, the brackets, the wires, the connectors, on a house, many times you have to run the conduit up on all of the external and internal pieces. So then you have the conduit, you have the connectors for those, the adapters for them. All of this stuff really adds up. So if you're putting together a system and trying to figure out what that cost is, I really encourage you to do that. Let's see where we at here. And I did want to, one more time, while we have everybody online, I want to thank all of our new members. Everyone say hi to our new members on Facebook. We did have a video go off this weekend. We picked up 15,000 new viewers. Just fantastic. Not to mention YouTube support growth was crazy this week. We are up over 25,400 new subscribers this week. Memberships have jumped dramatically. My memberships are very simple. They're only a couple of bucks a month. You get access to all the videos early. Sometimes I have one video out there. Sometimes I have 3, 4, 5 weeks of videos out there. This month is going to be particularly active. I will have video releases every day, probably for the entire month. Mostly, probably every other day long form, every other day short form, something along those lines. But that's what I'm working on there. So. And if you are interested in a membership, YouTube sent me an email earlier today saying that they had a program going where you can get a free membership just by going and attempting to do the sign up. There should be a place out there where you can click on it and get the membership for free. So you can do a trial for a month and see if you like it. Even if you don't like it, this is the perfect month to sign up and get it anyway, because you're going to get to access to a lot of really good things. I don't make a whole lot off of it. I mean, it's like $2, and I just do it because it gives you guys a little bit of an opportunity to help pay for some of this stuff and be involved and get early access to it. Give me feedback from the people I know that are really dedicated and watching. There's Paul from Writing with Paul. Good to know. I've never looked on 8 gauge MC4 connectors. Also hi from Facebook. Yes, you and all of the Facebook users tonight. Wonderful group. Welcome to you all. Jake, gotcha. I do not believe that they make 8, 10, 12 unless it would be non-set. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they don't. I know they make 10, 12s, but I don't think they make ones that go with 8 also. I know the ones that fit 12 won't fit 8 comfortably. I've tried before and they don't work really well. Sorry, MC4 connector for all. Yeah. Let's see, Dead ALM 556. What are the name brand MC4 connectors you recommend? There are a lot. There are probably as many. I did a review on this once before, and I think that I was told there was over 100 different brands of MC4 connectors. The important thing here is to have a brand. for you to use a specific brand. There are a lot of good ones. You can go with the original MC4 connectors if you want those. They're a little bit more expensive, but they're probably worth it. I have not had any problem with several different brands, and I've had different customers using different types, so I try to use the same ones that they have. But for the most part, as long as you are putting the same connector on both sides of your connection, then you really don't have too much trouble. But that is the trick. The male and the female plugs are designed to connect together by a sleeve over gapping the connector on the other one. And when that sleeve doesn't fit just perfectly, that connection can cause, especially on the 6000 XP, it can cause arc faults, and the PV will shut down on you and you won't have any clue what it is. It'll cause other I've seen other inverters where they jump around on the maximum power point protection because it's arcing inside and you can't really see it. You will also notice that the easiest way to detect this is a heat gun. You can either put a heat gun on it or you can use a thermal camera, and those MC4 connections, you will see the ones that are acting up. They get quite hot and they run very hot up in the 130, 140 degree range, which once they get over the 180 or so, they start melting. So that's where you really want to avoid it. But as long as you are using the same connector on both sides, I haven't had too much luck there. I would avoid the super cheap ones though. And that's kind of my advice there. Fast Eddie, I need to head home. Thank you for sharing knowledge. Appreciate Fast Eddie. You are very welcome. I'm here every Monday night, almost every Monday night for the live stream, and all the questions are always welcome. So please welcome back, and we'll see you on the next one. Is that Garvish? Garvish 7372. How to effectively convert an existing original solar inverter into a hybrid using AC coupled lithium batteries. There is actually, I am going to be building a video on that exact question here over the next 2 weeks. I have a Solar Edge grid tied system on my roof that I did not have access to until recently. And I am going to AC couple that into the 6000 XP. If you've got a 6000 XP, a 12,000 XP, or pretty much any inverter that allows you to AC couple, the method I'm going to use is exactly the same, and I'll go through each one of those in detail. But that's a bigger question than I can answer here. I do have a video out that you can go and review, take a look at, that talks about how the, I'm going to hunt it down for you here, how the AC coupling works, but it is not a practical installation. It is a theoretical one to explain it so that you will understand how it works. And I will have the actual build video. Here it is. I will post this for you. This is the AC coupled video. It explains how it is, how it works, what the theories behind it. But basically, you have a special port on your inverter that takes the AC feed from your existing solar system. It simulates the grid so that as that generates power, it can take that power in and feed it into your current system, use it to charge your batteries, run your devices, so on and so forth. But it does not, I'm not talking about a hybrid system where I'm sharing power with the grid. This is basically an AC coupled where I'm just taking the power off of one and simulating that grid for them. That's how I'm going to be connecting it. So hopefully that answers your question. But if not, let me know and I will go back and revisit it. MC4 male and MC4 connectors. And the Stabali is the original brand, so that is the true MC4. Now, as I said before, regardless of the brand, you need to make sure that they're the same on both ends, or you will not have that security that you're looking for. Signature Solar has them. Yes, they do. I will get you a link for them here real quick. MC4 Stabali. Here they are. And they're the 1012s. I don't know if you're looking for the 1012s or the... Let's see if I can get this. Yeah, give me just a second. Sorry, everything never works the way I want it to, does it? Went to copy that URL and it broke on me. Ah, there it is. Okay, got it. All right. And there it is. That's the MC4 from Signature Solar. If you you can also use the coupon code if you want. It doesn't change. This doesn't change any of your pricing any. It just you can get $50 off, but it only if you're ordering over 500 will the coupon code work. But if you are, then feel free to do that. There's also a link down in the description for, and I can actually put you a QR code up on the screen also if you're interested. It'll get you there if you're shopping on your phone or don't want to look it up. If I can figure out where it went. Oh, here it is. There you go. There's a QR code that'll take you straight to a parts list that I have with everything and all the different parts, all the different inverters, chargers, codes for Signature Solar, for all the different battery companies and everything that I use on all of my systems. So, all right. Now back to comments. All right, so can we connect model Percolon 42 volt 11 amp on the string with HT 49 volt 14 amp in the second string with two? So here's the trick, Garvish. The trick to connecting these is a lot of times you'll hear people just generically say, no, you shouldn't do that. And what is really important here is you have to understand that each of your inverters has a voltage, maximum voltage input that it can take in. And you have to make sure that you don't exceed that. That's one of those configurations that if that voltage is higher than it's supposed to be, it can damage your inverter or your charger, excuse me. I gotta have a couple drinks of coffee before it gets cold. But as long as your voltage doesn't exceed, you can mix the panels. Now, a lot of people will tell you it's not a good idea. Ideally, you wouldn't, but I have done plenty of tests on it. It does work just fine. As a matter of fact, when I got the new panels in, one of the things I did was hook up some of the old panels with the new panel to see if there would be any diodes that would cut out or blink out on the old ones, and there was absolutely no effect. So that does work. It does work quite effectively. If you are running in parallel, the trick here is to get the voltage on the parallel strings as close to the same as you can. In other words, you have a 42 volt panel on one side, you have a 49 volt panel on the other. If you ran those two panels in parallel, you're going to bring that 49 volt panel down to 42 volts. But if you put a 42 volt and a 49 volt panel together, you would be running at 101 volts. So if you were to run, if you had two of each of those panels, you would want to run them one of each on each series and one of each in parallel, and that would give you two strings of 101 volts, and they would work perfectly together, even series to paralleled. But the trick here is the voltage, to make sure that the voltage A doesn't go over your input charger, and that it's high enough to activate, turn on your charger, and if you have parallel strings, that you get them as close to possible. If you don't get them close to possible, this is a common question. Somebody has a solar system, they got 38 panels, one panel goes out and they want to replace it. They're like, well, I can't find anything that's, 36.8 volts. And my answer always is, you don't have to have exactly 36.8 volts. Panels have a lot of variance in them anyway. Get one that's a volt or two bigger and go with it, and you won't see any degradation from that point. That panel may not work as strong as it could, but it won't affect the other panels in the string. So there's a lot of things you can do there that can help you out. But absolutely, you can use them together, but you still have to be very cautious of the voltage. That is the real kicker here. That is what you're really trying to get to the exact same. If you have more details about the exact panel setup and how many and what you're trying to do, then I'd be glad to help walk you through and make sure you get it right. If that wasn't clear enough for you to get it on your own, which you may be able to, I may have made it clear enough, or I may not have been. Sorry if I didn't. Big Bad Bo, do you think it is possible to use 3 EcoFlow Delta Pro 3S with battery for a permanent off-grid solution? The Delta Pro devices are really good devices, but my opinion is, and it is only an opinion and probably not a very educated one on the Delta Pro, because I do not use them personally. I build most of my systems and stuff. Delta Pros are great for those people who want to pay the premium to have someone else put it all together, make sure it all functions and works. I, on the other hand, like to teach people to put it together themselves and have the flexibility of expansion. That said, if I was going to use a power station for a permanent solution, Delta Pro would be one of the very, very few that I would trust to do it. They make very good equipment. I would do some initial stress testing to make sure through a thermal camera that it could handle what I wanted to do on a regular basis. It is very, very common for people to build a system to use in an emergency circumstance and not use it until they get into an emergency circumstance. Find out that wall plugs, outlets, cables, connectors, and things overheat when they're really stressing it. So my suggestion is, yes, if it's a Delta Pro, I think you could probably be okay. But at the same time, I would make sure that I would do the stress test before you need it, not while you need it, because once you need it and it doesn't work, there's nothing you can do but back off what your demands on that unit are. Hopefully that's clear enough. At the same time, please keep in mind also, I do not have any direct experience with Delta Pro, so I have a lot of knowledge about them and the quality of them and other reviewers, but I don't have any direct knowledge about them. What is the highest amps and MC4 connectors will come in, and can you use bigger ones on the smaller systems? And so most of them are rated for approximately 30 amps. I would not use them at that rating. I would try to keep it at in the low 20s if I could. If you are going to use them and stress them up to that point, then I would make sure that I thermal camera them to make sure that they're going to be okay. Once they're good and the connections are solid, they usually can last connected for years without problems. But that said, if they are used panels, and I'm going to stress this, if there are used panels that have been sitting out and they're weathered and the connectors have been exposed to the weather and they're tarnished or whatever the case may be, a lot of the times they don't make good solid connections when you first start using them again. And so you may need to make sure that you're checking them to make sure they're not getting hot, they're not overheating, they're melting. I can plug in 1,000 brand new panels and not have a single bad MC4 connector. I can plug in 100 used panels and get 2 of them that melt on me. So I'm always very, very cautious to stress test used panels, especially those that somebody allowed you to pick up, that came off of their house, that sat in their backyard for a year before they decided that they didn't want to figure out how to get rid of them and want you to come pick them up. Or they wanted to sell them on Craigslist or Facebook to you. So that would be where I would go there. So the answer is most of them, the specs will tell you, but most of them support up to 30 amps. I would suggest that you use a higher voltage, keep your amperages lower, and the higher voltage, the less voltage loss you have, the less voltage loss you have, the less wattage loss you have. Whereas when you do it the other way around, all you do is increase the stress on the wire and make it more demanding. So it's always easier to keep that amperage. For example, 100 volts, 10 amps is 1,000 watts. But if you did 300 volts at 10 amps, you got 3,000 watts, but it takes the exact same amount of wire with absolutely no loss. So you can support 3 times with voltage 3 times. So it really does make a difference. That voltage makes a huge difference. It drops your amperage, and dropping your amperage that is the part. It's the higher the voltage, the smaller the wire, believe it or not. The higher the amperage, the bigger the wire you need. So if you're going to be going distances, or you're going to have large amounts of power, you want to get the voltage as high as possible. That way your amperage can stay as low as possible, and that way your distance doesn't have drop and your amperage doesn't stress out the wire in those runs. All right, text the wife to bring out the fresh warm cup of coffee. I've still got most of a cup here, so I just need to drink it. And unfortunately, I'm more gabby than anything tonight, so I'm just not getting it drank. But I do have my backup plan in my Mountain Dews here if I need them, but I haven't even gotten to open them yet. So no backup plan needed at this point, but I'll get to them eventually, probably. All right. Moving on. Let's talk a little bit about the reality of bifacial. The bifacial reality is a lot of people ask me. I took a tremendous amount of heat for mounting those panels up against a fence. And you're right. For those of you who criticized me for it, you were absolutely right. It does not give me the bifacial gains that I would get if I was to mount them in a place that had rock behind them, that had sun behind them, if I put them up on a gazebo and had concrete under them, or paint my fence white or put gravel underneath it or whatever. You're absolutely right. At the same time, all of the comparisons that I've been doing for what I had and what I have now would have been completely invalid because they wouldn't have been the same setup. I set those first 16 panels up exactly the same way the original 16 were set up. And I set the other panels up in a very similar fashion to the way the rest of the system was set up. Intentionally. Now, could I mount them up? The fact is that bifacial panels can get up to about 30% more power. It is a very legitimate thing. It isn't made up statistics. They do work. Believe it or not, I do approach on many days bifacial gains from those panels because the bifacial panels they don't have a seal on the back of them that reflects the light back into the monoface of the panel. So the light bleeds through, hits the fence, and actually hits the back of the panel anyway. Is it significant? It's very hard for me to tell. I do know on my RV, I've got 370 watt bifacial panels there. They are mounted about 1.5 inches off of the RV, and I do see some bifacial gains from them. Is it as much as I could? No, it's not. I'm not claiming that it is. Please don't write me with hate mail about mounting bifacial panels flat on an RV roof or against a fence and being able to get gains from it. There are some gains. It's not super significant. I didn't buy the bifacial panels because I wanted the bifacial. I like the look of the front and the back of the panels. I like the flexibility of having that option in the future of mounting them horizontal and getting light on both sides. I like the option in the future of making a gazebo out of them or making a porch or whatever I want out of them. And I also like the fact that they're lighter. Bifacial panels are just lighter. They're still very strong, but to me, they just feel lighter and easier to deal with. So I like them for a lot of other reasons. The fact that I can get some additional power out of them, it's a bonus. It's purely a bonus. And a lot of what I do too, keep in mind that I'm not building a system other than the one that's on my house. All of my solar shed builds are for us to learn and to play and to teach solar or educate myself about a particular item. I'm not doing it for the fact that I want to build a solar shed to power XYZ. I want to learn how to do the setups, what the setups look like. I want to demonstrate how they are. I want to show you how they are. That is what the part of it that I enjoy. So a lot of what I do is temporarily because I'm just going to tear it down and build something else. Just yesterday on my list was retake out all of my solar shed system and rebuild it with a new full conduit casings and stuff. Why? Not because the system I have doesn't work, not because it isn't doing exactly what I want, but because it would be a good education for me and for you, and we would all learn something from it together. So that's kind of why I bought the bifacial panels. The legitimate answer is yes. The reality is bifacial panels can get 30% more power. That's been proven, easily said. You do have to mount the panels usually up about 6 feet in the air. If you put them over gravel, you put them over in a gazebo over concrete or picnic tables or things like that, you will get a huge amount of increase. If you put them next to would love to have a shed where I put a porch on the shed and the roof is solar panels and underneath would be, the concrete, and I could use it to store things and stuff like that. It would give me shade, it would collect the power, and the bifacial piece of it would also be there. So the reality is, yes, it does work. It's usually when you're going to be doing ground mounts, not on roofs, unless it's commercial where you have a flat roof and you can tilt them and you have, the white roof, not the black tarred ones and stuff like that. But the fact is that when it comes down to mounting panels like this, you're usually not going to, short of getting the ideal configuration for that time of year in your location. So for me, it's 28%, a 28-degree angle is a year-round average best, but in summer it's as low as 5%, in winter it's as high as 55%. At no time is my ideal panel angle 90 degrees, meaning vertical. At no time is it that high. Now, does that mean that it don't work? That is the huge difference between old panels and new panels that I've recently realized. Old panels, used panels that are in the excess of 8 to 10 years of age and older, required you to get closer to the upper half of their direct sunlight to really produce, to have enough voltage, to have all their diodes turn on. I've got a couple of used 250 watt panels that from my original purchase that only come on at the point that they have almost full power. They go from generating almost nothing to generating 230, 240 watts. Now they're 250 watt panels that are 12 years old. So is there a lot of degradation there? No, there's not a lot of degradation there. What the difference is that the new panels would have started producing way back at the very beginning of this arch and gradually increased all day. They wouldn't just click on and get to a certain point where they turn on. And a lot of you that use used panels will see this in your statistics. Your generation will be nothing and then it'll jump, as opposed to gradually crawl. Now, sometimes you can see that because the light comes over a roof or the sun hits the right angle in the middle of the day or whatnot and so forth. But this was one of the huge differences that I noticed between the old used 12-year-old panels and new panels. Take away the fact that one's a 455 and one's a 255. 100% generation on the 455s could gradually go up, which is great when you don't have direct sunlight all day long, meaning they are much better at vertical panels. They're much better at those oddball configurations and setups and stuff that you would normally wouldn't be doing. Am I suggesting if you have a way to mount the panels south at the perfect angles to do vertical instead? No, absolutely not. No, I wouldn't. Absolutely, I wouldn't. I didn't do it on my 31 new panels. I put all 31 of them facing south at a good angle. But so bifacial, great, excellent when you can do it. But for me, I like the panels better anyway. I don't like the cover coat on the back. I don't like the not being able to see the panels. I don't like the way they look from the backside, and I love the way the new bifacials look when you're looking at them from the backside. They would make a great patio roof, and at some point, if I ever decide to put in a gazebo or something like that, that's what I will do. I will not put an actual roof on it. I will use bifacial panels. Even if I don't have them hooked to a solar system, I will do it for the looks. Okay. Let's talk about a couple of questions, and then we're going to get into our bigger panels better, and we'll talk a little bit about that because the new panels are 455s, the old ones were 250s, and the question becomes is really which one's better? Let's go back up here. Only got a couple. Garvish, is it viable to install solar panels vertically in places 20 degrees latitude with panels facing east-west, places above 30 degrees latitude, panels facing north-south? Vertical panels will almost always generate something depending on how, going back to just the previous conversation. The newer the panel, the more efficient they are, the more likely you are to get generation out of them. Is it ideal? No, it's not ideal, but you will get generation out of them. When I built the solar shed, this was one of the biggest things I took heat from tons of members would go out and say, there's no way you're getting that much power. And my point is that I had 12 panels on the solar shed. I had panels on 4 sides. I had it on east, I had it on west, I had it on the south, and I had it on the top. I did not have anything on the north side simply because the door to the shed was on the north side. Wouldn't have gotten much solar over there anyway, so it didn't matter. The fact is that the panels I had 3 on the east, 3 on the west, 2 on the south, and 4 on the roof. The 4 on the roof generated 50% of the power. The remaining 8, being double the panels, generated the other 50% of the power. So did the vertical powers produce nothing? No, they did not produce nothing. Now, keep in mind, these are the panels that are 12 years old, meaning even with 12-year-old used panels, they were in fact generating power, but they were generating half the power of half the panels, which means they generated 25% of the power of a panel that was on the roof. So it was a significant drop. My suspicion is the new panels that I have now, the newer high efficiency bifacial panels that I have now would generate tremendously more power than the old ones, and only because they're more efficient and they work 100, not 100. They work up. Old time, I used to get about 12% in rainy days. Today, I can now get about 40 to 45% of my production in a rainy day. To me, that is a 4-time increase, 4 times better solar collection during hazy, rainy, non-sunny, indirect sunlight collection. That is huge, and it is huge at a time when you need it the most. That's what's really important here, is it isn't just huge, it's huge during the time when you need it the absolute most. And sometimes having 30 kilowatts of solar panels and you get all the power when you don't need it doesn't do you any good. It is much better to have 10 kilowatts all the time when you do need it than it is to have 20 when you don't need it. So the answer is yes, you can do it. Is it practical? It depends on how much power you need. It depends on how many panels you've got. It depends on how much room you have. If you are in a place where that's your only option, then absolutely go for it. especially if you can get the used panels and put them up with used and you're not spending a tremendous amount on panels. Now, if you're spending money on panels and brackets and mounts and racks and all of that, then you're going to want to go with collecting as much out of them as possible because you've got a huge investment there. I had mine against a white vinyl fence and there was an increase in output about 12 degrees, 12%, 12 degrees from the fence. Oh, about 12 inches from the fence, and yes, it does work. It absolutely does. Donald is 100% correct here. And I think everything that I said supports exactly what he said also. Here in Florida, vertical mount panels work great in December, January, and February before or after the months there are big decrease. Yes, there is. And this is absolutely true too. Those 3 months, if you have them facing a good 70 or 80 degrees to the south, you can get a lot of power out of them. I think the actual angle is close to 60 degrees for the perfect thing during that month, but it's not very difficult to go even higher than that. And that just means, even if you went full 90 degrees, it would be the equivalent of being down at, 20, 25 degrees, which would be performing excellent during the summer months. All right. NSB, I am tempted to sell some of my panels under 400 watts and get a few new high voltage ones. And NSB, this is exactly the dilemma that I was faced with, is that I didn't have any room for any more panels. I had 94 of them sitting in my backyard. I mean, you saw it, they were sitting everywhere. And I came to the conclusion I wanted more power. I knew I needed an additional, I wanted to get to where I could generate, 80 kilowatt hours a day on a good normal day of sun. But the only way to do that was to be more efficient about the panels. Now, an interesting calculation here would be, is the panels I have now are 82 inches by 42 inches. And let's just see if I can bring up Excel here. Let's see. What did I just do? Oh, I see. Yeah. All right. So let's just see if I can bring this screen up. This one. There we go. Okay. So let's take this and let's bring up Excel. And let's say they were 82 inches wide. So if I take 82 times 42, so my new panels are 3,444 inches, cubic inches. And the old ones were 66 by 39. These were 250 watts. These are 440 watts. And so it was producing 10 watts per cubic inch. And the new ones are producing, whoops, let's do this the right way. I don't know if you guys can see that. Let me blow that up a little bit. The new ones are producing so that is a good efficiency increase of exactly what they said. It's a third of an efficiency increase to using new panels versus old panels. But if you take their rating of the old panels, they were about 17%. The new ones are about almost 22%. Let's call it 21%. And so we could even do the same math here, and we come up with, it is the difference in the efficiency rating is about 20%, and it is legitimate. New panels legitimately are about 20% more efficient, 20% more generation for the space that they're in. Because not only do you have the generation, what am I trying to say here? Not only do you have I can't get my mouse where I need it to be. There it is. Not only do you have the more efficient panels overall, but they are also more, they use the space more efficiency and more efficient, and you get more for the same space. So you end up with a huge increase in production when you do it this way. Howdy, I'm from the far north, and making an east-west solar fence, my production increased vastly. Yes, depending on how far north you are. And sometimes you can catch that morning and that evening sun, and man, they are awesome. A lot of people up there, and I don't know if you have seen some statistics on this. Obviously, the south facing at the right angle and blah, blah, blah will make it better. But those east-west ones, when you're using them in place of fences and stuff, I've had a lot of people from up there tell me that they were using them, and especially in some of the European countries, they're saying they're using them as fences because the solar panels are cheaper than the fencing is now. So the used solar panels, when you find a farm that is shutting down and stuff, that you can pick them up, use there. But absolutely, it is, in the right circumstances, it is the right thing to do. There's no question there. And I know I keep saying it, and it's because I'm going to get some hate mail for this, but the fact is that vertical panels are effective in the right circumstances. Are they better than setting them up in the ideal pattern? No, but not everybody has that option, or has the space, the availability, the area, or whatever the case may be, or even the need. All right, so let's go back to bigger panels. Are they better? And I'm gonna, it comes with a cost of, the newer, bigger panels are definitely better. Like I said, we had 94 panels, now I have 32 panels, and now I have 1/3 the installation cost if I was to mount the panels. So you have 1/3 the mounting equipment because I have 1/3 the panels. So the clips, the rails, the space, the wire, the connectors, all of that gets divided by 1/3. So you're not spending near as much money on that. But the panels themselves are a bit more expensive. But are they 2 or 3 times more expensive because the hardware is going to cost you a lot more also? So in the long run, in some cases, depending upon the size of your installation, if you're doing it all at once. Now, if you're buying a couple of panels here and there and you're playing around with solar and you're learning and you're educating yourself and you're building a little system for this or that, or playing around with a shed and just making something to charge some tools or run a light, or charge your lawnmower up or something like that, then absolutely use panels are your ideal situation, because chances are you're going to have more power than you need anyway. But if you know you need 10 kilowatt, 20 kilowatt, 30 kilowatt system, and you have limited space, or you have a limited budget, and you're trying to figure out what is the most cost effective, don't assume the used panels are going to be cheaper, because they're not necessarily going to be cheaper when you consider all of those hidden costs that we talked about earlier, as far as rails, wiring, mounting, connections, and even with that less efficiency, you end up with over paneling things. And I'll give you an example of this. When I hooked up my original, when I hooked up those 94 panels, I had 32 panels running through the 6000 XP, 32 250 watt panels. Very rarely did it get anywhere near close to 3,500, 3,300 watts on each of the channels. And they were 4,000 watt channels because there's 2 chargers on there. But I had 250 watts times 16. So I had 4,000 watts of solar panels, but I wasn't getting 4,000 watts of power out of them at any point, and had no risk of getting it. Now, when I hooked up the new panels, I have a string of 8 450 panels. And I only did it that way because the 8 450, and I can show you the spreadsheet of what I've actually got hooked up now. We can just kind of look at that. It's just raw data, but I can explain it, show you what I've got. So In this, I hooked up 2 strings of 8 on the 6000 XP, and you can see that here. And there was 1 string in parallel, so there are only 8 panels in series. They have a 404 volt max voltage open circuit and run at about 335 MPPT. And as you can see, it is a little lower than that. If I come over here to this, you'll see this one's at 310, 318. So they do run a little bit lower than the 330 that the sticker shows. But that's because I'm not getting, the ideal full sun. They're not the perfect angle, blah, 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 all those reasons behind that. But the key here is the 3,500 watts. So there were 400 watt channels, and I didn't want to over panel anything because they're new panels, and there are going to be occasions when I do get close or above it. And the fact is to this, if I come over here and look at what I've actually been able to achieve, and let me see if I can get, I need the 6000 XP, right? Okay. So here, even today, we got up into, for one of those channels, got into the 2000, 2500, 2600 range. But if I go back a few days and look at these days back here, I'm getting into the 3500, 3600 range. Got to find a good day here because we've had so much rain lately. We've really been that far back? Man, we haven't had any good weather lately in a long time. These are old panels. Those are only 1800s. Okay, so here it is. These are spiking up into the 35, 32, 3300 range. But these panels already are spiking up into that close to maximum capacity. So I didn't really want to configure them to have anything more. At the same time, I wanted to keep the voltage way up at the 300 volts so there would be very little voltage drop running them across the yard into the solar shed. So, and that is kind of why that I did that. Now the question becomes, are they better than the small panels? And in my mind, I'm getting 400 watts for 50 volts, whereas before I had to run 8 in parallels. So there was 8 in parallel, 8 in series, 2 in parallel on each string. And that gave me the 4,000 watts for each string, and it never got close to it. Even in the best of times, it wouldn't get close to maxing out. It usually would only get up into the 26 to 2800 watt zone unless I perfectly had those panels aligned to the sun on a particular day. Now, the best day, I would get them. But now if I did that, I would have had a lot of clipping going on, and I didn't want to do any clipping. So I was very careful to, when I set these panels up this time, as you'll see from this chart here, I put 8 on this, 8 on that, and then I put 2 sets of 4 in parallel on the Victron. Now this Victron is a 250 volt, 100 amp Victron. So I got it up to 200 on the max over here, and it runs at about 160 or 170, and it generates another 3,500 watts. Now it only generates, the output is only about 70 of those 100 amps, but that's a good safe margin from its max. It's a Victron, so I probably could run it max, but I didn't want to run it max every day. And then I have the last 7 panels on the LZ power inverter, and they run in conjunction on one of the, there's 2 chargers in that one also, and on one of them I run those 7, and they run at, it's about a 60 amps of charging, and it runs at 290 volts, and they run pretty good. And then I have the original used 250 ones. They have sentimental value. There's 8 of them in series. They don't generate a whole lot, but those are the vertical mounted ones on the hinges, and they're great. They're sentimental, so they'll probably keep those. But the question is did it make a difference? And yes, it made a huge difference, because for the same amount of power, I needed only 8 panels, and I was peaked out. Now I'm looking at, okay, if I want to generate that much more power, I'm going to need to go to something like a 12,000 XP, where I could bring in two of those lines in parallel. And because the output of each one of them would be, 12,000 watts as opposed to 6,000, 4,000 watts. So if you looked over here at, let's say, 12,000 XP manual, yeah, we got it. So we look at the 12,000 XP manual, we go down here into the specs under PV input. We have two inputs, and there are between 100 and 480 volts, so it would easily take that in. But the nice thing is they're 12,000 watts per MPPT, meaning I could theoretically put 3 strings on 1 MPPT and still not be maxed out, which is just awesome. 2 would be easily, because that would be, about 3,500, about 7,000 watts. So this one alone could handle 32 of those panels. So that's a possibility. The other possibility is to install a second 6,000 XP and run all 4 strings through it, which is another thought that I've had also. So there's a couple of different options there, but this is what happens when you start getting into these larger panels. You're dealing with this higher voltage and this larger amount of production. You have to start thinking about the input, because the alternative on the 6,000 XP, I did not realize just how much difference the input of PV is from the 6,000 to the 12,000. So looking down here at the input for PV, it has pretty close to the same voltage. Those are very close, but it's only 4,000 per MPPT. So one of those 8 in a string generates 3,500 watts on a good day, and 32, 33 regularly. So I really can't do much more than that. If I put a 4th one in the string, my voltage gets a little bit high, and I'm down at the 385, and that kind of would probably be fine with the 480, 385. I could probably do 9 in the string, but really if I was doing 32 panels, I probably want to keep them at 8s anyway. So that's kind of the idea here, is the idea, and the answer to the question is are bigger panels better? It depends on your system. If you are running a 12-volt system on the top of your RB, then absolutely not. I mean, one panel is 50 volts. So you're going to have to, now the nice thing is it would only take one panel and you would have all that in there, but you wouldn't be able to deal with anything to do with shading or anything like that. And you're going to deal with a much higher voltage. Now, the much higher voltage in a home situation where your panels are a long ways away, you can deal with it that way, and it does have some enormous benefits. All right, now let's ask the question, answer this first before I go on. Is dual string hybrid 8K inverter having one string with vertical 4 700 watt 17 amp 49 volt engine mounted connected to existing? Oh, all right, so that is 4 700 watt 17 amp 49 volts mounted vertically and connected to existing 10 42 watt one string. So let's just do the math. I'm going to go back over here to the spreadsheet and I'll walk you through how to actually do it. All right, so you have let me put the screen on right here. There we go. All right, so I'm going to do it right here on the screen. So you have 4 of these panels, and they are 49 volts each. And then you have 10 of these panels, which are 42 volts each. And if you see something in Garvish, if you see something in my math or not accurate, please say so, because it'll change the answer dramatically. So in order to determine how much, if this is truly in one string, and I'm assuming you mean they're all in series, all connected together, positive and negative, all together, so you end up with 14 in one string, meaning that you're going to have, we're going to take this 49 times 4 here. We're just going to say this times this. That's going to generate 196 volts, and this is going to generate 420 volts, and that means your total voltage across this string, open current voltage, should be around 616 volts. Now, your inverter, the question becomes is, does your inverter accept 616 volts? And I would seriously doubt it, considering most of the laws didn't allow more than 600 volts in home inverters until just very, very recently with all this high voltage stuff. So, and you'll notice that's even true over here on the 6000 XP and the 12,000 XP. These don't even go over 500. And here it doesn't go over 500 either. And so, and its maximum is 500. So that's what you're going to want to check is, could you do it that way? And my best suggestion is probably not. Now, what you could do though is that you can, you're talking about here, the amperage on these is not going to be too high because it's going to be somewhere between 11 and 17 amps. And we could calculate what that's going to be when we're all said and done here, but I don't think that's your designing factor. What you probably could do is 2 in series of this and 5 in series of this, which would be half of each of these, which would be, let's just do the math real quick, 49 volts times the 2, and 42 volts times the 5, which would give you a string of 308, and then you would run 2 of these in parallel. And running 2 of these in parallel would double your amp rating, but would leave your voltage at 308 volts and allow you to either feed 2 different strings of 308, as I've done with my 6000 XP, or to feed, as you implied here, having a one string, you could do a one string inverter as long as it can accept the wattage of all of them and the voltage of them. Now, if you go over a bit, if you what they call over paneling, in other words, this is going to be a lot of wattage, so you're looking at 700 watts here, and what are these here? 430s? 430s, so you're looking at, ooh, so you're only looking at about 710, 7,100 watts. So as long as that's close to, even if your inverter only accepts, 5 or 6,000, you can over panel it a little bit. It's not going to hurt anything. You cannot over voltage though. The voltage has to be under that high voltage. No exceptions. You will 99% of the time break the equipment if you put too much voltage into it. So it's very important that you do this calculation, and that means that this should be the maximum that you run in there, is whatever that maximum is. In the case of me, for the 6000 XP, that's 480 volts with a maximum of 500. Now it's going to max short circuit, DC current voltage range is between this and this. Absolute max PV voltage is 500. So that means if I go over 500, chances are I'm going to release the magic smoke of this inverter. And I cannot stress that enough, how many people have this happen to them. So that's what you're going to really want to make sure you pay attention to that math very closely. I hope that was clear. and that you understand that if I missed something for you, Garbage, let me know. I'll be glad to answer it. All right. The real question becomes, why would you upgrade, or why did I upgrade? And this is a very, very simple for me. For me, it was fewer panels. I had 94 of them, and I wanted more power. There was no way for me to get more power just by adding more panels. I simply did not have room. So that was one really good one. Higher production per panel, and to be honest with you, it made for some cool video. You know, I like I said, I do this not because I'm trying to run my house. Sure, it's a backup if a hurricane comes. And sure, I can use it to run my bit miner. But a majority of the time, the other 360 days of the year, it is for learning and playing and educating us on the solar system. And then the new modern solar panels, I knew there was some efficiencies there that I hadn't seen before, and as I learned, it was a lot more dramatic than I expected, and that is why it's a good idea to, why I upgraded anyway. Why it's a good idea, it really depends on your circumstance. It depends on what you have, what you need to install, where you're going to be installing, and you're going to have to gauge the two, because for years, used solar panels were my answer. And I'm the king of used solar panels. You go back through my library of videos, I probably have 50 videos based on how to get used solar panels, how to connect used solar panels, what maintenance to do on used solar panels, how to test used solar panels, how to buy used solar panels, where to find them. There's tons of videos out there. So I am the king of used solar panels. So the fact that I'm talking about new solar panels by no means says that used solar panels don't have a place in this world. As a matter of fact, I look forward to the next couple of years when the 380 watt solar panels start coming out of these farms, and they start aging out, and they start becoming very, very common, because those are really good panels. The 250s, there was a bazillion of them out there. The 300 and 380s are going to be super, super popular. I can't wait for those to start showing up on the used market. All right, let's talk a little bit about peak sun hours, because a lot of people who get involved in solar panels, they get this notion of, well, I got a 400 watt panel, therefore I'm gonna, the sun's up for 10 hours a day where I live in Florida, and therefore I'm gonna get, 4,000 watts of power. And the answer is no, you're not gonna get 4,000 watts of power. Let me show you a very easy way to figure out how much power you're really gonna get, because every part of the United States the government has gone out and done estimates for us based on sun patterns of how many what we call sun hours you get in your part of the country. I know that my sun hours this month today are 5.56 solar hours a day. That means that if the sun comes up and the sun goes down and there's no clouds in the sky, or actually even clouds in the sky, now on average this month for this part of the country where I live, I will get an average 5.5 solar hours of energy. That means I will get 100% for about 5.5 hours on average. Even though the sun is out 12 hours, it takes 12 hours to accumulate that 5.5 hours. In January, it's much less. In May, it may be more. So let me show you how you can look at the solar hours that you have in your area, and this will allow you to kind of understand how much power you're going to be able to get from a set of solar panels, because this is really key to building a good system. So the best way to do this that I found is a government website called PV Watts, and I'm hoping that it's still in here from me using it before, and it is. Thank goodness, because I didn't remember the URL. PV Watts is a government calculator that's all about building solar calculations, telling you how many solar hours, what kind of panels. But it's more than that. It allows you to really analyze your panels and not have to do all the hard math. You saw me jumping over to spreadsheets. I like math. For me, math is sexy. So I play with the math. I love toying with the math. I love understanding the math, and I love digging into it and getting it all down. But at the same time, sometimes I just want the damn answer. And so this website allows me to get that answer. Let me demonstrate how it works. So, and this website is free. You don't have to sign up. You don't need any memberships. You don't need nothing. It's government provided. It's all out there. It's all public knowledge, and it is enormously helpful for anybody calculating a PV system for yourself. Small, large, RV, van life, shed, doesn't matter the size of the system. This will allow you to get an idea of how much energy you're really going to be able to get from those solar panels. So let me demonstrate. So let's say that we have an RV and we know that we can only mount 500 watt panels on that RV, and in those 500 watt panels, we can only mount them flat on the roof. So the question becomes is, how much power am I going to get from that RV if I've only got 5 100 watt panels? Now, you could easily do the math and you could say, well, I got 500 watts, the sun's out 10 hours a day, I'm going to get 5,000 watts at 5 kilowatts, blah, blah, blah. Well, I can tell you now that's not going to be right. So let's put it into the system. So we're going to put in where we are first of all. I'm here in Florida, so I'm going to put that in. Now, the first thing you can know about this site is that this north 27.9 degrees means if you use that latitude for the angle when you mount your panels, it is the ideal angle here in North America for a panel to get the best average year-round. Is it the best average in the winter? No. Is it the best average in the summer? No. It is the best average for all 12 months when you combine the whole year. In the summer here in Florida, in where this zip code is, I would get the best in the summer at 5 degrees, and I would get the best at winter at 55 degrees. But if I put it at 28 degrees, as this suggests, I will have the best average for the whole year. Now, in our van scenario, doesn't matter. We already know we're going to be mounting them flat. So we got to take that into account. So let's go to the next page here. We know that we are going to have 0.5 kilowatts, which is, or did we actually, we said 5 100 watt panels, which is a half a kilowatt, which is 500 watts, right? The module type is going to be, the premium hard solar panels. It's not going to be the thin film ones. But let's, you know what? We're not even going to buy the premium. We're going to buy the standard ones out of Harbor Freight, let's say. All right. Now, they're going to be fixed from, and we're going to put them on a roof mount. And we're going to say that they're going to be tilted. So we were talking about earlier, the ideal in my area would be 29%, but we know these are going to be on an RV. So they're going to be mounted flat at 0%, meaning they're flat on the roof. Now, if I was going to always park facing where the panels could face south, or if I had little tilts on them where I could angle them up or down, I could change that number based on what I wanted to do there. The losses, you can use the losses in a variety of different ways. My suggestion is put this at about 16%. It usually costs about 8% of your generation to take power from a solar panel for all your equipment to convert it down and to store it in the battery. And then it takes another 8% to take it out of the battery, convert it to AC power, and provide it to your devices. If you're using fans and other DC devices like in an RV, you could probably have them more accurate at 14 because half of your power is going to be DC power and only part of it's going to be used for AC. In a house, I would go to 16 to 18%. In an RV, you can get away with about 14% because a lot of your devices run on DC power, especially if you have DC air conditioner or DC refrigerator or DC hot water heater or something of that nature. You'll find that efficiency definitely will be down in the 12 to 14 range, as opposed to a home where everything is AC and it has to convert it. And keeping in mind that there is no free electricity, meaning if you're going to do something with electricity, put it in the battery, take it out of the battery, charge it, switch it from AC to DC, DC to AC, convert it, MPPT, change all of that cost power. All those electronic devices have to run. and they're using that PV power to run. So that's why the losses are there. It's not necessarily losses, it's just unaccounted for usage. And I'll get into unaccounted for usage in a little bit, but I wanted to point it out when I got to it. That's really what we're talking about, is unaccounted for usage. Okay, now this just means in which direction are they going to be facing? But since they're zero flat, it doesn't matter which degrees. 180 means that they're facing perfectly south. 0 means they're facing perfectly north, and it's like a clock. 90 degrees would be west, 180 degrees, 180? 200 and, what is it, 200 and something, 220, 210, whatever it is, would be east. So you could adjust it based on your house. Now, if you had a house and you were putting in multiple sets of panels, you can add advanced perimeters and you can put in multiple calculations and put in an array this way and an array that way and make it much more complicated. I'm going to keep it simple. We got our 4 panels on our RV. They're flat on the roof, and we're going to hit next. Now, this is going to go through and it's going to generate how much power this system would generate. Now, you can see there's a couple of very, very important pieces of information here. The first one is, this here is the number of solar hours for that area for that month. And if you remember, I told you I had 5 point whatever it was. Oh, it's actually changed. Huh. Oh, it changed because the month changed. August. Okay, 5.26, 5.95. All right. So I get 5.95. Oh, it's in at 0 degrees. Keep in mind, this also keeps your panel array degrees in a calculation. So it's a little higher because I mounted them flat as opposed to 29 degrees. If I had mounted them at 29 degrees, it'd be less. It would be more, it would be better for the average for the year, but it wouldn't be better for this month. Okay. So according to this, I am going to generate 67 kilowatt hours in a month. Now, in order to know how much that's really going to be, I'm going to have to divide that by 30 days, which is 2.2 something, 2.21 or 2.22 kilowatts a day. Now, remember, we did the quick math before and it was 5 kilowatts, and now we get into the reality here, taking into account losses, the angle of the panels, the fact that they're on the RV, and blah, 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 and we come up with 2.2 average a day. You're not going to get 2.2 every day, and there's going to be days when you get more than 2.2. But at least now you have an idea of how much power those panels will generate that you can pretty well count on. This formula works pretty good, especially if you want to do house calculations, if you want to do RV calculations, and if you have multiple arrays. I found that sometimes it's easier to just do 2 or 3 of these and then add them together, or put this into a spreadsheet and add them together. Now, this breaks it down by month. So if you wanted to see how much power you're going to get in every month, keeping in mind that the slow months, you only get 3.1 and only 43 kilowatts for the whole month, which is less than, way less than the 2.2 we were getting this month, because we're only getting 3.51 solar hours now. We're not getting near as much sun. But it also means that during the month of May, we're going to have almost 3 kilowatt average a day. So this is really good, but it also gives you that average of 5.17, and for the whole year there. So it gives you a bunch of numbers to look at and ways to look at it. Did you already hook up the 6000 XP inverter in your home grid-tied system? No, I have not hooked it up yet. I have used it to run my home as a what do you want to call it? As a like a generator, as a backup if the grid had gone out. But I am just about to make the AC coupled video, and at that point I will be installing the devices to intercept what comes from the Solar Edge system, how to hook the 6000 XP coupled up to that, and then feed that back into the house as power also. So there's a couple of things there, but as it stands today, yes, I've used it to run the house. Yes, I've used it as a backup. I have not used it to power the AC coupled off of the Solar Edge system at this point. And I'm not sure which one your question was directed at, but I went ahead and answered them both. Oh, you did say grid tied system. So that is coming here in the next couple of weeks. I've got all the parts, but this damn rain has been holding me up because I don't want to go out and work on the side of the house and put in all that electrical equipment in the rain. Hopefully I'll get a break here and get that done here in the next week or two is the idea. It's going to be a fun build though. I'm really looking forward to that one because I am one of those people who I was very fortunate. I bought a full home solar system about 5 years ago. The company that I hired to do it did a wonderful job, zeroed out my bill, gave me everything I asked for. The system was running and everything was great, and they were actually honoring the warranty until about half a month ago. Last week I got an email, or I got a notice from the company that they have gone bankrupt and I no longer have a warranty. They are out of business. So the good news and bad news. The bad news is they're no longer going to warranty it. The good news is I'm going to take care of it myself at this point because the parts, the in-phase microinverters and stuff that are in there are all okay. Their manufacturer honors the warranty on those. It's not actually part of that company anyway. So it was just them coming out and fixing the things as they went out. That I can handle myself. But the great part is now I don't have to worry about ruining my warranty in order to do something like AC coupled or something. So I will go ahead and do that. And I will probably create another video that discuss how you will take the ownership of that Solar Edge system away from the defunct company that's doing your support and monitoring it for you, and take control of that monitoring system also. That is the plan anyway. I am looking to put in a Blue Eddy 3000 in my RV. Limitation I see is that it only takes a max 60 volt DC solar input and 20 amps. So it is limited in solar panels that you can use with it. Yes, and that is one of the biggest problems with a lot of those power stations, is that input of 60 volts is very difficult to deal with, and 20 amps is difficult to deal with. So for example, the new panels that I have would be wonderful in the sense that they're 51 volts, so you could actually have, one panel would feed that system just wonderfully. The problem is they're also 11 amps, meaning that you could put one panel on the whole eddy, not going to give you a whole lot of power. So that's kind of one of the downsides to dealing with those power stations. And as we discussed earlier, or maybe that wasn't you, might have been somebody else asking about the Blue Eddy earlier. I don't know if that person is still here, but if you are, here's some experience this person has with them, and that 60 volt DC charge is a real pain in the butt. And that's a lot of people asked me about that when they were buying used panels, of how they could hook them up. I also have an in-phase system on my house similar to yours. Yeah, that's gonna be one of my favorite videos. Has been it was the good news bad news situation, where the company had installed it, but they kept coming out and doing the monitoring and honor their warranty and everything. And sadly I was almost happy when I was informed that they were no longer going to be able to do the monitoring, and they were going out of business, simply because it meant that I could fix it. I find it obnoxious that 74% of the solar systems in the United States of America will go out when the grid goes out. It seems like the whole purpose of them, or a big purpose of them, is not just cutting cost, it's having a little bit of independence and stability from the grid. So, all right. Well, I look forward to Bandit. I look forward to you here in the next week or so, giving me some feedback on if I missed anything with my. And I encourage you to go watch that AC coupling video if you haven't seen it already. Let me know if it's the same system you have and what pieces you want me to cover so that I make sure I get them in the video for you. Because it really is a big, giant gap in the system of a lot of these solar systems that are grid tied and they don't allow you to do it. And AC coupling is a good solution. All right. We talked about peak sun hours. Let's get on with. I just ran the question, what is a kilowatt hour output of 10 kilowatt system panel between fixed 28 degrees daily angle of 10 kilowatt and 600? And the answer was, leave me hanging, between fixed 28 degrees versus daily correct angle of 10 kilowatt, 600 kilowatt a year extra daily. Wow, that's crazy. So you're saying it was an extra 600 kilowatt hours doing, if you do the angle, if you change the angle every month, it's that much extra? That is a lot. Woo-wee. Yeah, it makes a big difference. Angle makes a big difference, a lot more than you would think it makes. I actually was going out. I haven't moved the new panels yet because it's been summer the whole time, but I actually was going out and taking the solar panels that I had on the shed, the used ones, and I would drag them down to very low angle in the summer, and I dragged them up to a higher 60, 65 degrees in the winter so that I could get more energy in the winter. I may end up doing the same thing with the new ones. Although I have them mounted at 28 degrees now, I may build one that's closer to a 50 degrees or 55 degrees for the winter and just put two runners boards along the bottom so that I can just pick them up and move them from one to the other, because that is the reason why the matter of the power generation difference is huge. Wow. The grid is obsolete method. Yes, it is. And it's becoming more and more obsolete all the time. Unfortunately, a lot of these solar companies are still convincing people to get these systems installed with no battery backup. And because people are unaware, it happens a whole lot more often than you would think. 74% of all solar systems are grid tied with no battery backup. It's pretty scary. I have used panels and I run them in series, parallel, 48 volts, 30 amps. And there is quite a lot of people that do that, but you need to make sure that you double check the amp rating on any of your MC4 connectors, because a lot of them are right there at that 30, 35 amp area. And it becomes very, very easy for them to melt if there's not a good connection in there once you get up into that range. 120 volts, 30 amp input, 48 volt system. I'm backwards. We're all backwards. Yes, daily angles. That's crazy, Donald. That is a lot of extra power. I charge my electric car during peak solar production and off-peak electric rates, so I don't feed the grid much during peak rates because I know I have no battery backup on the grid-tied system. Yeah, and one of the systems that I discussed with somebody that was on the live stream last week is they were asking about, they had built a system where they could charge their RV, or their EV, not RV. And they were running into the same problem, is that they would go to work in the morning, and then when they got home, the sun had already gone down. So they had to have not only enough battery power to make it through the night, but they had to have enough battery power to transfer from their battery to their EV, or they didn't have enough power to get back and forth to work the next day. It's one of those big, giant power usage items, that you have to make special accommodations for when you're building a solar system, or do like you're doing, charge it during the day. But that is problematic for people who actually get to get in their car and drive to work in the morning. 26. 26. 26 amps, 26 degrees, 26 something, 26 degrees probably. You said you were backwards earlier, so I'm assuming that's what you meant. All right. Pegs work great. Lots of inline fuses. Inline fuses are nice and safe. I had a splitter that I was running on a temporary system the other day, and I used 2 legs of it, and it was sitting on the ground, and it rained a little bit, and that positive one hit the grounding wires there, and because the shed was properly grounded, it like burned the whole wire off the end of that connector on me. I was like, oops. I'm just glad it was, it was a temporary small system. It didn't really have enough to cause a big fire or anything, but it's pretty scary when no matter how much you do this, no matter how careful you are, it's not a matter of if you're going to have something go wrong. It's a matter of when you're going to have something go wrong, no matter how careful you are. My south-facing string is movable. Change the angle each week. Now that's pretty cool. And that would be kind of fun, is to build one of those that you crank up and crank down, but I just can't rationalize spending the money on something that for me it would be something I would use for a couple of months and go, okay, well that was fun to build, now let's start on the next project. An interesting local code challenge. Mount 10 panels on the backyard cart to onboard inverter. Inverter has 240 volt 50 amp generation cable that plugs into the house emergency generation connection and runs off grid. Mount 10 panels on a backyard cart to onboard inverter. Inverter has 240 volt 50 amp generator cable that plugs in, and that's how I use my 6000 XP and the LZ Power, the 10 kilowatt inverter. I run it through the I run it to the house through a 50 amp cable, which is 12,000 watts. So chances are, in any hurricane or anything, I wouldn't be needing more than that, unless it was an extended period of time, and then I would have to probably switch off from run the hot water heater and then flip it over to run, the stove or something like that. But even the AC and the hot water heater together are only 8,000 watts, and 7,000 or 8,000 watts isn't the 50 amps that you get out of a 240 connection. So you're pretty safe there. And this is the kicker here. No permits, because it's portable solar cart, replaces generator input, and generators require no permit. And this is true in almost every jurisdiction for RVs and campers also. So you can put your solar system in your RV and your camper, and you can use it as a backup to your house without permitting. Yes, I do know of that particular one. That was how I got away with it at all those different locations I was at. 26 degrees. Oh, you're pretty close then. So you're just a little bit further south than me, though. You're at 26 degrees. I'm at 28 degrees. 28, 29 degrees, somewhere in that area. I used it to power my HVAC during the day of 3 hour after shutdown, the day and 3 hours after shutdown. During the day and oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. And that's the way it is. At first you just find things you can supplement the power with, things you can replace it with, and all that. I would love to do a sun-chasing solar rack system that follows the sun, but not a lot of options pre-made. Yeah, well, you know what? I thought about this too. And I think I have it figured out, is that I wouldn't make it to where the part for the angle for the north south, you know, degrees of the thing, you could make that adjustable, but like, you know, annually, not annually, but seasonally adjustable. The part that would be cool for the tracking is the sunrise to sunset, because that would be very easy with the RC controls and Home Assistant to basically program in, you know, 10 or 12 different locations during the day, and each hour you just shift another hour in the screen. I mean, how many shifts are there going to be when the sun is up? The most you're going to have, even here where we have, you know, 11 hours of sun during the day, you're going to shift, what, 10 times? So in the morning, you know, at 6 a.m. it goes and rewinds all the way over to here. And then once an hour, it just shifts a little bit. And that would be a dramatic increase probably. And then this, this part you could only just shift once. And I don't know all the right words for it. I'm sure if I looked over at the PV, what do they call it? The, yeah, I don't see it. But you know what I mean. Because you got the two angles. The one that would follow the sun from east to west, and the angle from flat up to straight up. That one I would just fix to where I could change it, you know, a couple times, 3, 5, 6, even once a month if I changed it, that angle to match whatever the month was, and then let this every day do its automatic shift back and forth. That would be a really fun system to build. Matter of fact, that sounds like a fun system to build. Maybe a little miniature one with like only 2 panels on it or something. Sounds like something fun to build. This is the problem. I get ideas like this and then I have to go and build them. All right. It's old C-band satellite dish mount, no cost. Yeah. They'd be good for that. I've got one of those on the top of my roof I need to get rid of. Maybe I'll turn it into a... I'm going to see if I figure out those remote control motors, though. I got to figure out somebody with RC car experience. Send me some links to where I can buy some of the motors. Probably Amazon probably has them these days. No cart inspection or permits needed in my state. Yeah, in most states they're not. No carts, mobile RVs, anything mobile, vans, any of that stuff. None of it is required. Usually, I'm going to say that, not definitively across the whole world, but in most cases it's not. Got to ground mounted cart in, ground mounted it. I got permits to add panels to my roof and my property taxes went up. I wasn't counting on that cost. Yeah. Yeah, and all in the what do they call it? All in the name of safety. They're doing it for your safety. Yeah, give me a break. Safety my. All right. They want their tax on everything. Yes, they do. Well, looks who's here. I'll be damned. How are you doing? How is your RV? I noticed it was still online the other day. I was tempted to log in and see how it was doing. I think your ID is still configured. Good to see you. Welcome to the live stream. Welcome back to the live stream. She's got a beautiful Berkeley RV with a 6000 XP in it. Brinkley, I'm sorry, Brinkley. I'm still jealous of your Brinkley. That thing is so awesome. Those are like the most awesome bays for building and stuff in them. Oh, they're gorgeous. Climb up in there, you can fit in there and build and all that. It's just fantastic. It's great to hear from you. I'm glad to see you here. I use linear actuators for the adjustment on the test panels. Yeah, see, you guys, you're going to get me hooked on building something like this. It'll be fun though, won't it? What I always say. And Donald, I'm telling my wife this one's your fault. Bang Good has all of the RC needs. Bang Good. Bang Good. And is it this Bang Good here? This is what we're talking about? It looks like that's the right place. Oh yeah, that's it. The prices aren't too bad. And they got to be low voltage, so I could probably even use like the little Victron, the output on the Victron. You know, hey, look at that! I found a use for the output on a Victron charge controller. How long has it been since you had a good use for that? Because on those Victron, let's go look that up. I'll show you. That's kind of funny. Amazon. So you got the Victron. Yeah. Smart charger. There we go. So they've got these, and I've always looked for something to put on this load right there. And that outputs, that I can get it to put a small panel on there and get it to output like 12 volts or something. So whatever that servo needs to run the device to move it around, I can use a little small panel for that. Now I got to find a little panel too. It's going to be a fun project. Now you got me thinking about it. It's all your fault. That's what I'm going to tell my wife anyway. This Saturday mount only needs to be moved to east in the morning and south at noonish and west in the afternoon. Yeah, that's manually though. You're talking about 401k solar. You're talking about moving it manually 3 times like that, right? So that would be cool. But the fun of this is going to have to be and I'm going to have to look at how hard is it going to be to control exactly where it is during the day in that window, and then pull from pull sunrise and sunset from Home Assistant has that, so I should be able to get that. I think I've actually got that right off already embedded in here. Yeah, I already have that embedded in here. So I know this is middle of the day, exactly noon when the sun is directly above. This is early in the morning, and this is late at night when the sun sets. So right now I'm looking at a little over 14 hours between the start and the end, and that would be pretty cool. But getting that servo to move it just right, I'm not sure I would ever use it legitimately unless I would just, had a small enough system that I need it, but it would be a fun to build. And that's the problem, is I enjoy the building more than I do the actual practical use. Doing great. We're living in it and selling the big, oh my goodness. Is it still working as good as it did? I know that it was one of those that you struggled a little bit with that ground, that QA issue they had, and you got that ground. No, when ground is common, wasn't common or some crap like that fixed. And once you got that fixed, and everything just boom started working, it was perfect. That was an awesome build. You bet they're watching your home with Google Maps for solar arrays. Yeah, well, watch all you want. Mine are all temporary. I'm just testing a couple of panels, and I can pick them up tomorrow if you need me to. You're welcome. Those are really cheap and powerful, nice. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a try. Works fantastic. Oh, that's good to hear. No issues whatsoever. I'm assuming they've been pretty stable. I mean, mine runs. I got mine. I stopped traveling for a while. We spent almost 2 years traveling in ours, And then we had a renter do some damage to the house, so we moved back into the house. And to be honest with you, I'm kind of liking having both options where we go out and do shows sometimes for a couple of weeks, and then we come back and get to have the convenience of the house, and I get to have the nice big solar shed and all the panels and power and everything, and then we get to go traveling back in the RV again. So um, but I still love the traveling. It's just fantastic. I have a My wife loves hitting all the beaches, so hitting up that coast. We stay there in right between North Carolina and South Carolina at what is that place called? South of the border. We stay there a lot as we're traveling up and down the coast. It's not a beach, but it's good centrally located, and it's a good day's drive to practically anywhere. So yes, but I could use the pulse from the actuator arm if I wanted to, but at home anyways, it's an easy habit to develop. Oh, yeah, I'm sure it is an easy habit, but I think I'm going to have to build one now. It may be small, it may only have a panel on it. Maybe I'll put the one panel. I got one of the new panels that I use to charge the 24-volt system. I might take it, and I got a little space where I could build it. I may make it where it just boop, 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 like a satellite dish moves with the sun. That would be really cool. I wonder how hard it would be to get the angle in there also. I mean, all the data is in Home Assistant, so it's just a matter of how much would it take to relay it to the servos to get them to move to the right spots. I don't know anything about RC controls, so that'll be a fun part to build also. Use a Raspberry Pi or Arduino, and AI will write all the code for you adjusting the linear actuator. Yeah, and to be honest with you, a lot of those I can use right from within the Arduino and the Raspberry Pi code. I can do right from within Home Assistant, but then I have the flexibility of all the variables within it and being able to monitor it too. So it'll probably work. And if that doesn't work, then I'll do the Arduino board and just do the programming myself. That's not a problem either. I don't know when I'm going to get to it though, but definitely going to have to happen. Probably coming up this winter, when you don't have as many projects going on. Summertime, there is so much new stuff coming out this year. I've just got like things piled up, and oh, and it's just going to be a great year of products and different builds and stuff. What about keeping it simple, weighing weight on each one of the ends of the rack? Each hour a pin is pulled and the rack moves to the next one, which is the weight, brings it back to the start of the rest. Well, that's a very easy way to do it. None issues. I'm assuming that's what that means. May have to hit the generator after 3 days running. Oh, you got the cube too. Yeah, I'm about to do a review on one of those new 12-volt ones for my wife's coffee trailer. It was getting wrapped and it's supposed to be done Wednesday. We're picking it up, and then I'm going to probably here in the next week or so the air conditioner for the 12-volt RV air conditioner. So if you run that's going to be really fantastic because it's low wattage, low consumption, and super efficient and really, hopefully, quiet. Probably not as quiet as the mini splits that I put in my RV, but at least it gets away from those so-called air conditioners they put on the roof. But you went with I forgot you went with the Chill Cube. How are those working anyway? I haven't heard a whole lot of feedback about them, and I thought there would be this huge stink when they first came out of how good they were, but it sounds like people are happy with them, but it hasn't been as good as they hoped, I guess. Buying land for family campground, going off grid at the new property on the new house, oh, that's fantastic. That's great news. Well, if you need anything, just let me know. I'll be glad to my shifting into home systems recently is be good help for something like that. It's a great project, another great project. Elevation could be changed with short actuator arm, but just move it once a week, a few turns. Yeah, it could be. I think I'll look at how difficult and complex it is to see how much it takes to move them. And half the time, even if I build it, I may not even keep it running for very long. It may just be the fun of doing it and watching it go completely automated. Old analog solution. Yeah. Love, love, love the chill cube. Oh, that's wonderful. That's good feedback. I don't remember the name of the one I'm going to be reviewing. I could probably look it up and see if I can find it. Honestly, I don't remember the name of it. So, but it will be, let's see. I lost it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have it on my list. I thought I had it on my list, the name, but all I put in was that it's a 12-volt AC unit coming in. I didn't put the name of the company. So, but that'll be a lot of fun. The chill cube though, that's not a lot of fun. The chill cube is good feedback. I really glad to hear that. I'll hopefully after you watch the video, send me some feedback and compare it to your chill cube. Tell me if you see any major differences. It'd be good feedback for others that are seeing it also. Donald Duke would have no remove pins completely during the winter since the sun moves across it so fast. Yeah, ain't that the truth? Solenoids pins will do. Watch out for it. It's so good to hear from you. I always wondered how that turned out. I knew it had turned out good because I know you went traveling as soon as it was done. You were waiting for it and then took off, and I heard a couple of pieces of feedback, and I think you've been on once or twice since then, but it's good to hear from you this far back. That's a really, really nice system. All right, where was I at with my checklist here? You guys got me all distracted talking to me and everything, which is good because I enjoy that more than reading off of my my action list here. The motor will work with 12 to 36 volts DC. The pulse comes from the gearbox and the arm, and the home assistant should be able to sense the counts. Oh, really? Oh, that could be pretty easy then. This could be a lot easier than I expect. But we'll see. If not, the ESP32 or Arduino or something like that, and we'll get it hooked up. It'll work. All right, going back to my list here. What do I got left on it? Talk about that. So used panels, is there good places for them? Yeah, there's still a bunch of good places for used panels. And I don't want this to be a hate fest on used panels, because the used panels are still super valuable. If you're building, you got a barn build, a shed build, an RV build, experiments, workshops, budget builds, your first systems. I had a guy come by and pick one up for a tree house because he wanted to put a light out for his daughter. So he put a little 12-volt system up in the roof so that she would have a light out there at night when she was in her tree house. All these are wonderful solutions, and there's tons of good uses for these, especially if you have tons of room and space to mount all these panels. Now let's talk about the biggest surprises, because there were two really big surprises that caught me off guard. The first one was when I put the new panels in, what ended up happening is I wasn't anticipating jumping to 13 kilowatts of charging power and my system simply wasn't ready to load it, to handle it. And let me show you, I'll show you a couple of pictures of what I mean from this, because it was kind of a surprise to me. I mean, I guess I should have known, but you know, you build a system planning on, damn, you build a system planning on doing certain things, and then you change the system and it doesn't, and it catches you off guard. So this is one of those changes for me. So let's talk about the two changes. I want to grab this picture first. Okay, so this is, I got to change the screen where you can see it too, don't I? So this was the first change. This breaker that I have here was a 100 amp breaker. And that was because I really wasn't anticipating charging over 6,000 watts. And it was a 125 amp breaker switch that I had in there. And so that allowed me plenty of room to easily charge with all the panels I had and to kind of accommodate what I want. But as soon as I put this system in, I noticed that I was, you know, reaching up into the 220 amps of charging on a 48 volt system. And so this breaker had to be replaced. And so when I upgraded the breaker, the first thing I did was upgrade the breaker. But then I noticed, and you'll see here, that now I have two sets of wires coming off of each of these. Because what technically I should have done is I should have gone to probably a 4/0 wire, and I had this, let me see if I can get this out of my way here. I had this wire here on the bottom and this wire here on the top, and they would support 150 amps. But when I did it, the first thing I did was go out and put a meter on it after I replaced the breaker, and realized that I had put the breaker on there to protect the wires, as I always say. And the problem is that once I replaced the breaker, then I was pushing 220 amps through. So instead of just replacing the wire, what I did is I put a second wire in, a 1/0 wire, to allow for the 1/0 itself can support the 250 amps, but I went ahead and left the original one on there to see if I could get it even cooler than normal. Now, it worked like a champ, but it was one of those things that when you do this type of upgrade, you need to be aware that you are going to have to check your system, because of the original design was built around around operating at 100 amps and in the 5,700 watt panels that I had, and that kind of system. And as soon as I upgraded that, it made a dramatic increase in power. And now I'm pulling in, you know, can commonly reach 13,000 watts of input. And that made for a very, very unsafe system. So that was my first change. Now, the second change that I had that kind of caught me off guard is that most of my system was fed through my 6,000 XP or the 250 100 Victron, which you can see that in my stats. When we come up here, I have my PV input come through my 6,000 XP, which are these two feeds here, or my Victron, which is this one here. Now this one is the 12 volt test system, so you don't worry about it. It doesn't count in my stats. But this was the input for those. But what I ran into when I did this, if you remember from looking at the panels earlier, I had to spread the panels out a little bit more because the production on 8 of these panels was producing about 3,300 watts. So I had to split them up onto another inverter. But the bad part is that inverter didn't have a way for me to track production for it. So I found a unique solution. Victron has some really cool features that you can use. So what I did is I installed, let me see if I can get you a picture of it. I installed a second smart shunt, and that's a picture of it. Let me see if I can, Yeah, so here it is. So the shunt at the bottom here is the shunt that runs to the battery bus. The shunt on the left there, I have configured from within Victron to act as a charge controller. So it reports the statistics as if it's a charge controller, allowing me to track it in Home Assistant along with my other chargers. So you can see down here I have charge controller PV yield is this here. Now you'll see that at night when the inverter is the only thing on, the idle consumption of a charge controller is 70 watts. And that's because this is actually that LZ power on that shunt, that new shunt that I've said act like a charge controller. So during the day, when it's charging, the output you can see here from those panels show up as a charger and allow me to track that, put that into my system, and calculate based on all of that information what kind of usage I have or what kind of input I have. And I was trying to get today's date. There we go. And so you can see now it allows me to see what's coming in from the extra charger, the 6000 XP, or the Victron regular charge controller. So, but the cool part is that Home Assistant allowed me to pull that in through the standard devices. So down here under the Victron devices, I was able to take I use Raspberry Pi running the Venus OS on this particular one, and I configured this shunt to look like a charger. And it's pretty easy because in Victron you can go in and say, now I want this device to act like a shunt, or I want it to act like, whereas if it was acting like a shunt, then I would have battery readings and all of that kind of stuff. Like if I come down here to the shunt, which is this one here, and you'd have, what's the percentage of charge, it'd track your battery consumption, it'd track all that stuff. But as soon as you say, hey, this is a charge controller, then all it does is track your charging for you, reports your standard, inputs and all of that stuff. But the nice thing is it looks like a charger within the Victron system, which causes it to feed into Home Assistant as if it's a charger. To all the statistics allow me to look at it as a charger and everything. So that's kind of pretty cool. But those were really the two big surprises that caught me off guard, is that I had to find a new way to track some of the data, and I had to find a way to update the wiring that was based on the old system, based on all of the new panels and all of the new power. Because going from having, 4,000 or 5,000 watts of input to 13,000 watts of input was a huge jump in power consumption, which I'm glad to have it. And as you can tell, I run the bit miner now for a good 14 to 20 hours a day, which is wonderful. All right, so let's see if we have any extra questions. Really, is that right? Have we been online for 3 hours? Is this live stream been going for 3 hours? Doesn't feel like 3 hours. I gotta get out of here, guys. All right, so used panels are great for getting started in solar. Yes, they are. They're wonderful for getting started, and they're also wonderful for some when you have plenty of space and stuff like that. They'll be wonderful for that. RVing with Bandit. I have the original install panels still on the roof, 16 years old, and they're still going strong. Yes, they are. Panels have a very, very long lifespan, and they still produce very good. The only real big surprise is the technology and the efficiency increases are real. They really truly are. And mostly not just the efficiency, going from 16% to 21% efficiency. That part's nice. What is really nice is their sensitivity to non-direct sunlight. Panels that are 10, 12 years old are much less direct than the panels that are new. Good night, Donald. Have a great night. And I've got to call it quits myself. I do want to celebrate a little bit about the number of subscribers and everything that we've got over the week. You guys, I'm going to set off some fireworks here. we have hit, and I need to see if I can find the actual numbers here. So the subscriber count tonight is 25,413. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our new Facebook followers. I had a video for those of you who are unaware that we are also on Facebook. We also live stream both in here on YouTube and Facebook every week. And this week we added 15,000 followers to our Facebook family. Thank you guys for participating, for showing up, and for watching and supporting me the same as the YouTube people. It is a wonderful, wonderful time that we've all had, and I really appreciate all of you. And I wish you a wonderful week. We will see you next week, and maybe we'll have something cool to talk about. I'm sure we'll find something. If not, I'll find somebody else to talk with. One of the other live streamers, and see if I can get them on here to chat with me if I can't find anything of my own to talk about. We'll see you guys then. Thank you, and thank you for everything. And if you are not a member, YouTube has let me know that most people can get a free membership. Just click the membership down below. You'll get a month free. You'll get to see all the videos early. And thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. And we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.